Chapter 675. All beings are equal, accepting disciples. How is that possible? Could you have been deceived? Even if they could defeat you, their cultivation level must be higher than yours. Could it be some elder monster in disguise? An elder frowned as he spoke, and his words gained the support of others. They all believed that Yuan Luo couldn't possibly lose to an opponent of the same realm. Xianxia also frowned. He believed that Yuan Luo's judgment wouldn't be wrong. He could sense Yuan Luo's setback, and Yuan Luo had been traversing the world for many years and had indeed lost to elder monsters before. Yuan Luo took a deep breath and said, "I can confirm his cultivation level is not as high as mine, but I am unsure of his origins and do not know his name." The elder's consolation only made him feel worse. He was a proud person who disliked failure, but he disliked even more when others denied his failure. The high-ranking members of the Qianquan sect listened in silence. Has another peerless prodigy emerged? They calmed down and thought it might not be impossible. Especially with Taiqian and the Dao court currently at war, the destiny of heaven and earth evolving, and great powers declaring that the time for an era change in heaven and earth had arrived. In such a season, the birth of beings with greater talent might not be impossible. Moreover, given the boundless vastness of heaven and earth, the Qianquan sect is but a drop in the ocean. If the Qianquan sect can give rise to a talent like Yuan Luo, why can't more prosperous places give birth to even stronger talents? Xianxia spoke, "Don't overthink it. Win next time, or perhaps, I could recommend you go to the beginning list for cultivation?" Upon hearing this, Yuan Luo shook his head and said, "I don't want to go. I just want to rely on myself, and I still have a long way to go. If I reach the end and see no hope, then I'll seek other paths." Xianxia didn't insist, but he found it strange in his heart. Yuan Luo's resistance to the beginning list seemed excessive, yet Yuan Luo had never spoken ill of the beginning list. Other elders began to encourage Yuan Luo, hoping he wouldn't be disheartened. Faced with everyone's concern, Yuan Luo accepted each one, appearing very humble. He was arrogant to outsiders, but his reputation within the sect had always been good. This was why the Qianquan sect was willing to support him at all costs, and his colleagues were proud of him. After chatting for quite a while, Yuan Luo finally took his leave. After he left, the elders finally expressed their true feelings. They found Yuan Luo's defeat inconceivable and even birthed worries because of it. No need to worry, currently in the sect, he is not the only world-class talent, and with the beginning list, we will not fall behind in terms of talent, Gu Changxing said. His words gained everyone's approval. Centuries of companionship were enough for them to trust the beginning list. Xianxia followed up. The world situation is turbulent. Tell the people within the sect to be cautious and avoid entanglements with Taiqian and the Dao court. We cannot support either. Qianquan sect must follow a path of self-reliance. Whether it be the Taiqian dynasty or the Dao court, behind them are numerous eternal transcendent forces, making them more like allies. The Qianquan sect's development is not as advanced as theirs, but each step is very solid, and the top level is still composed of their initial members. After receiving the orders, the elders began to discuss the world situation. The Taiqian dynasty's offensive is fierce, nearly reaching the Dao court's mountain gate, causing an uproar throughout the land. People realized the Dao court was no longer the undisputed world ruler, which led many ambitious individuals to start scheming. The Dao court's territory is vast, and its foundations are deep. Even a small piece is enough to make a sect soar. 1,000 years later, Emperor Tianhong returned to the Taoist field of the beginning list. He came immediately to visit Guan, "Master, the person you asked me to mentor, he has died. I failed to protect him. Please punish me." Emperor Tianhong knelt behind Guan, his expression dejected. An Exen who led the way couldn't move upon hearing these words, standing still to ascertain to whom Emperor Tianhong referred. Guan was inside the pavilion writing a secret manual, his back to Emperor Tianhong, and said, "No matter, dead is dead. I only asked you to teach him, didn't expect you'd spend so many years before returning." That person was the reincarnation of the Tai Immortal monarch. Under Emperor Tianhong's guidance, his cultivation progressed rapidly, Unfortunately, he died at the hands of a great power from the Taiqian dynasty. Even Emperor Tianhong couldn't stop it and had to rely on the power of a Dao treasure to protect himself. Having spent so many years together, Emperor Tianhong developed deep feelings for Tai. His heart filled with grief and self-blame. He even hoped Gu Wen would seek revenge for Tai, but he restrained himself, knowing that his master had no obligation to intervene. In his eyes, his master didn't meddle in worldly affairs, only acting when faced with external threats. To the master, all living beings under heaven were of equal standing, and the master wouldn't favor anyone. Tai's death was ultimately a personal vendetta. He insisted on competing with talents from Taiqian for heavenly materials and earthly treasures, resulting in the intervention of the opponent's support. Emperor Tianhong also made a move, but the opponents were numerous, and he couldn't prevail. I didn't expect to mentor for so long and ultimately develop compassion, Emperor Tianhong sighed. Tai was his first disciple, and after spending so much time together, he inevitably became attached. Gu Wen turned to look at him and said, "Cherish the feelings this experience brings you. As for Tai, he will reincarnate." Really? I clearly saw him utterly obliterated. Emperor Tianhong's eyes lit up as he asked excitedly. Gu Wen smiled without speaking, leading Emperor Tianhong to speculate it was his doing, engendering feelings of gratitude within him. "Thank you, Master." "Thank you, Master." Emperor Tianhong began to kowtow, exceedingly joyful. Gu Wen looked at him with a silent sigh. Although he had awakened some memories of the immortal gods, he was still far from becoming a true immortal god. "Go and cultivate. As for Tai, I won't prevent you from encountering him again in the future, but you need not actively seek him now," Gu Wen said. Hearing this, Emperor Tianhong felt even happier, hurriedly thanking Gu Wen, then stood up, bowed to an Exan, and vanished from the spot. "Master, could that person called Tai really be the reincarnation of the Tai immortal monarch?" An Exan approached Gu Wen and asked softly. "Yes, it's him. Aren't you afraid they, as two immortal gods, might collude?" "Rest assured they won't." Gu Wen answered casually, casting a satisfied glance at his writing. An Exan inquired, "Master, do you think I could also take a disciple? I haven't truly taken a disciple before and want to experience being a master." "Don't worry, I won't go out. I'll choose a disciple from within the Qianquan sect." Gu Wen shot her a glance and said, "You may take only one." An Exan was overjoyed and giggled, "Thank you, Master. Rest assured I won't carelessly choose. The disciple I take will certainly please you, and they won't bring shame to the beginningless." Gu Wen raised his hand to ruffle her hair, smiling, "In truth, aptitude doesn't matter. If you meet a disciple you're fond of and they're willing to accept you as a master, don't worry too much." Chapter 676. Wuxi's Third Generation, Destiny Fulfilled. After Gu Wen agreed that an Exan could take on disciples, she eagerly headed to the Qianquan sect. However, Enzin's standards were extremely high, and after going through the Qianquan sect, she didn't find anyone suitable. Regarding this, she was not in a hurry, prepared to wait through the long years. She would either not accept disciples or accept one who would be the strongest among the third generation of Wuxia disciples in the future. Although the third generation of Wuxia has not yet appeared, the Wuxia disciples have already begun to prepare eagerly. The once-in-millennium sparring already couldn't satisfy them, especially after the Blood Prison Great Saint and an Exan took the lead. Other disciples began to contemplate other ways to surpass them. Gu Wen not only had strong personal strength but also his ability to cultivate disciples was evident to all, and naturally, the disciples wanted to emulate him. Upon hearing that an Exan was allowed to take disciples, other disciples in the dojo also approached Gu Wen, hoping to take on students. Currently, aside from an Exan, only Celestial Demon Child, Celestial Scion, Tian Bai, Blood Prison Great Saint, Ghost Mother of Ephemera, Emperor Tianhong, Shenzhen, and Xianxia remained in the dojo. Chen Chuan, LV Xian, and Sheng Tian had not returned until now. They had already established sects outside and could only occasionally come back to visit. As for the competition among the disciples, Gu Wen did not intervene, as long as it wasn't malicious competition. After all, in the long years, there needed to be some fun to pass the time apart from cultivation. Time passed in a flash, and another 10,000 years went by. And Xen still hadn't taken any disciples, and because of this, the other disciples were not in a hurry either. They adhered to the rules secretly, as an Xen was the senior disciple, and her disciple should be the leading disciple among the third generation. Moreover, they required a standard. Being the first to take a disciple would easily become a reference for others. With so many geniuses in the world, who could guarantee their disciples would be the strongest? But if others had already taken disciples, they could make comparisons. In these 10,000 years, Guwen had performed 6 lifespan projections, making his achievements in the Great Tao reach an exceedingly high realm. On this day, right after the Spring Festival, Guwen came alone to the vast path of the Great Tao. The path of the Great Tao was vast and boundless, not in the form of a cosmic plane. It was lush and flourishing, with countless branches, each containing different Tao rules. The part of the path of the Great Tao he arrived at was considered the main trunk. The 3,000 Great Tao formed one vast Qi Sea, within which were continents and meteors, with no visible signs of life. Looking towards the overseas part of the Great Tao, darkness made everything here seem small. This time, Guwen came to pioneer the primordial Tao Emperor. He hovered in the void, above the Qi Sea of the Great Tao, his heart-eye capable of seeing incredibly far distances. He saw some people searching for treasure, some trapped in Tao dilemmas, some fighting for the Taoist emperor, and some facing life and death separations. Not only the human race and demon race but also many other races existed, some not even in the form of living beings, resembling souls or stars. All things fell into Guwen's eyes, and even as a Tao extreme Daoyuo immortal, he felt the boundless creation. Those who could tread the path of the Great Tao had already become immortals, detached from the mundane world, each entwined with endless karma, as if a world became a speck of dust upon entering the path of the Great Tao. Guwen's gaze turned to a farther place. The 3,000 great worlds lay under the path of the Great Tao, and the path of the Great Tao connected many mysterious planes, including the primordial Emperor Domain, Misty Immortal Court, Ling Mountain, among others. Upwards from the path of the Great Tao was chaos, and nothing could be seen, but Guwen's divine sense could reach into it, which meant there were planes above, he just couldn't explore them yet. Sir, the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guwen withdrew his gaze and began to create the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor. Creating destiny would not cause a great commotion. For the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor to truly establish, it would take long years to develop. Rather than say he was creating destiny, he was in fact creating a kind of great Tao, allowing it to exist in the path of the Great Tao until discovered by cultivators. Notably, Xianxia's Sacred Heart Sword Tao was also a kind of destiny. The Sacred Heart Sword Tao would persist with the river of Sword Tao, allowing cultivators to draw upon its power, just like a Taoist emperor and a primordial Tao emperor. It's just that Xianxia's cultivation level wasn't strong enough. There's no denying that Xianxia's comprehension was truly terrifying. Without using lifespan evolutions, he could reach this step, even though he wasn't stronger than the celestial spirit god. Before Guwen entered the golden immortal Tao fruit realm, creating such a sword Tao was very difficult. But Xianxia was him, and Xianxia's greatness was his greatness too. As he complemented himself in his heart, he continued creating. His Tao intent formed streams of airflow around him. Before coming, he had already constructed the destiny structure of the primordial Tao Emperor. Now only the final step was needed for it to be born. Soon, these streams of airflow converged to form a gray mist studded with countless golden stars, still swirling around Guwen. He raised his right hand and pointed in a direction, and the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor surged that way. During the surge, this destiny gradually gained color, resembling a rainbow, but quickly becoming more vivid than a rainbow. Guwen watched as it drifted far away. Only after it merged into the Great Tao destiny and disappeared without a trace did he vanish as well. He didn't return directly to the celestial spirit great world but visited other great worlds, even going to the primordial Emperor Domain and Misty Immortal Court. Each time he went somewhere, he would erase his karma and aura. After several hundred back-and-forth trips, he finally returned to the celestial spirit great world. At this moment, it was still afternoon, with a bright and sunny day. Guan went to the Gathering Flower sect and met with Jiang Qiong. Upon hearing Guan's message, Jiang Qiong immediately set aside everything and came to meet him, even having her disciples prepare immortal brew and immortal food. The two met in a small pavilion on the mountain top, outside of which a vast sea of clouds resembled an earthly fairyland. Did something happen? Guan asked with a smiling face, naturally aware of what Jiang Qiong faced. His direct call for her was also to help her out of a predicament. Upon hearing this, Jiang Qiong's smile faded, she furrowed her brows and sighed. It's still the Taiqian dynasty and the Dao court causing trouble. Taiqian is rallying all the sects and dynasties to divide Dao court's territory. Before Taiqian breaks Dao court, whatever territory the sects get will forever belong to them. But if they wait until Taiqian breaks Dao court, Taiqian will confiscate all the land in the world. The elders of our sect also want to get involved, but I don't think Taiqian will win. Why won't they win? Guan asked. Jiang Qiong gave Guan a sidelong glance and responded with irritation. Because the Taizong dynasty still exists, the Dao court won't annex the Taizong dynasty, but Taiqian will. Guan smiled helplessly. I have long been unrelated to the Taizong dynasty. The evolution of worldly affairs is not something I will interfere with. Really? Jiang Qiong didn't believe it, and her inner voice made Guan give her a glare. Guan fake coughed and said, I have an opportunity here. If you can grasp it, the Gathering Flower sect might become as strong as the Dao court in the future. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 677. The Visage of an Old Friend. What opportunity? Jiang Qiong's eyes lit up with curiosity, and she asked eagerly. She trusted Gu and wouldn't deceive her, so she already began looking forward to the future of the Gathering Flower sect. Guan said, the Great Tao encompasses 3,000 paths. Besides qi absorption for immortal cultivation, there are many aids. I have an opportunity in hand called the Primordial Tao Emperor. By achieving the Primordial Tao Emperor, within the same realm, no one can defeat you. You will find it easier to attain enlightenment than other cultivators. Of course, becoming a Primordial Tao Emperor is no easy task. I can only provide an opportunity. Success depends on your efforts and fortune. Primordial Tao Emperor? Hearing this name, Jiang Qiong was instantly excited. Just from the name, she felt it was formidable. Guan then waved his sleeve, and a gust of clear wind brushed Jiang Qiong's face, causing her to become slightly dazed, her consciousness floating into the Great Tao. The initial opening of the Primordial Tao Emperor requires not only time but also Tao seekers. The more people comprehend it, the stronger it becomes. Destiny inherently needs to spread. Every living being carries the creation of the Great Tao, which they cannot perceive, but when they move toward a certain goal, the creation aligns with that target, forming an intangible, imperceptible destiny. The more beings pursuing the Primordial Tao Emperor, the faster its destiny grows. This process also aids Guan's Tao practice. Of course, he can also transmit his power to all cultivators through the Primordial Tao Emperor, complementing each other. While Jiang Qiong was immersed in the creation of the Primordial Tao Emperor, Guan began drinking wine. He decided to conceal the fact that the Primordial Tao Emperor was his own creation. Even his disciples wouldn't know the truth. Jiang Qiong was just the beginning. Guan would lead those he cared about into the Primordial Tao Emperor. Of course, if someone didn't want to become a Primordial Tao Emperor, he wouldn't force them. But he thought no one could refuse to become a Primordial Tao Emperor. Just like the attraction of the Taoist Emperor to the world, cultivators find it hard to refuse additional power to enhance themselves. Thus, in the years that followed, Guan transmitted the destiny of the Primordial Tao Emperor to his disciples, old friends, only saying that the Primordial Tao Emperor was a destiny rank different from the Taoist Emperor. Just as he anticipated, no one refused to become a Primordial Tao Emperor. When dealing with Li Ya and martial resolution, Guan didn't appear in person but allowed them to encounter the opportunity to become a Primordial Tao Emperor in a serendipitous manner. This made both extremely happy, thinking they had found the greatest opportunity in the world. Through the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor, they sensed the vastness of the great Tao, even feeling their souls had transcended the great thousand world. To truly become a primordial Tao Emperor, reaching the stage of soul projection is required, where the cultivators need to resonate with the great Tao. That is a high level of achievement, a process in which Guan would not assist them. If the primordial Tao Emperor were chosen by his will, it could never surpass the Taoist Emperor. On the path of the great Tao, in a void space, a man in red with white hair was treading a sword, his features handsome and posture upright, like an immortal monarch wandering the void. His name was Fang Xian, a heaven-encompassing free immortal. Suddenly, his face turned pale, and he couldn't help raising his hand to clutch his chest, showing a pained expression. Damn it, I survived the celestial spirit great world, and after merely tens of thousands of years, I am to die on the path of the great Tao? Heaven, you truly love to toy with me, Fang Xian thought bitterly. Not long ago, he encountered two prodigies battling over the Taoist emperor. Because he stayed to watch, one of them secretly attacked him, cursed him with bad luck, and left him in great distress. He had just managed to become a heaven-encompassing free immortal. He also aimed to be a Taoist emperor. Yet, before setting foot on the emperor road, he was about to die. His heart filled with confusion, he couldn't help but think of the battle between the battle court and the supporting Tao sword venerable back then. He thought he had great destiny for surviving under the supporting Tao sword venerable. Now it seems it was indeed just good luck. On the path of the great Tao, his talent wasn't extraordinary. He was even defeated by contenders for the Taoist emperor in the profound Yuan-free immortal realm. Looking back on his life, he was a renowned genius of the battle court since childhood, yet he had never done anything worth boasting about, always failing. He once found comfort in the idea of poor timing, but now? Fang Xian's eyes gradually dimmed, his mana roiling within, painful memories surfacing that he wished not to recall. He flew towards a nearby meteor. Upon landing, disregarding the flying sword, he staggered to a mountain wall, sat against it, and tried to meditate and cultivate energy. Peef, a mouthful of black blood spurted from his mouth, splattering on the ground and turning into scalding black smoke as it dissipated. He spat not only blood but also his Tao practice. They were fragments of his Tao fruit. Xianxia the novel, the NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. His Tao fruit was shattering. Fang Xian was unable to cultivate energy. He leaned back against the mountain wall, his head drooping. At this moment, he looked so weak, but such scenes were not uncommon on the path of the great Tao. He remembered the dead head seen before. He once admonished himself to be cautious, never to follow in their footsteps. But he never expected. Fate was already before his eyes. Fang Xian's lips curled, revealing a self-mocking smile. Suddenly, a light appeared before him, capturing his attention. He instinctively looked up and saw a light at the end of the cliff ahead. For some reason, he felt compelled to see that light clearly. He was dying anyway. He couldn't die so disgracefully. If he were to die, he would die standing. Fang Xian took a deep breath and forced himself to his feet, walking shakily forward. He was only a few dozen feet from the cliff's edge, yet it felt like a lifetime's journey. When he finally reached the cliff's edge, his chin was stained with black blood, his entire being appearing miserably tragic. At the cliff's edge, he finally saw the existence within that light. A piece of silver crystal, like a fragment of some creation, emitting light while rotating. This is, Fang Xian murmured. As he recognized the silver crystal, his spirit condition surprisingly improved somewhat. He involuntarily raised his hand to touch the silver crystal. When his fingertip made contact with the silver crystal, a strong light burst forth, engulfing him in an instant. Supreme Sect, Third Medicine Valley. Under an old tree, Guan, transformed into a middle-aged cultivator, was playing chess with the nine-fingered divine monarch. Even though he had left the Supreme Sect for hundreds of thousands of years, because his sword intent atop the heaven-repairing platform had yet to disperse, many still came in pursuit of the supporting Tao sword venerable. Emperor Tianhong once came in the past. The supreme sect might not have been a top sect in the world, but its fame was immense. Gu En's eyes slightly changed as he placed down the chess piece in his hand, somewhat surprised in his heart. Unexpectedly, this person has such fortune. Gu En sensed someone stepping into the Primordial Emperor road of the Primordial Dao Emperor on the path of the Great Dao. This person had some causal ties with him, being a cultivator from the battle court whom he had spared in the past. The cause and effect on the path of the Great Dao are complex, especially concerning such destiny ranks as the Primordial Dao Emperor. Gu En couldn't discern who in the future would become a Primordial Dao Emperor, so Fang Xian's success came as a surprise. It's truly a case of fate playing tricks, turning foe into friend. Sitting opposite Gu En, the nine-fingered divine monarch stared at the chessboard, his brows furrowed tightly. He occasionally glanced up at Gu En, then back at the board, thinking deeply. After a while, the nine-fingered divine monarch looked up at Gu En and said, "This fellow Taoist, you remind me of an old friend." Gu En chuckled and asked, "Who?" The nine-fingered divine monarch stood up, walked to the side, turned his back to Gu En, and stroked his beard sentimentally, saying, "He was someone who disappeared almost 400,000 years ago. His chess skills were second only to mine. I see his style in you." Gu En glanced at the board and internally scoffed. Is he trying to take this chance to end the game? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 678. The Rise of the Emperor. The nine-fingered divine monarch began recounting his past with Gu En, leaving out Gu En's name entirely and altering many parts of the story. Gu En sat in front of the chessboard, patiently listening to the nine-fingered divine monarch boast. His thoughts drifted to the Supreme Sect. Currently, the Supreme Sect's sect leader is Yi Tsong. Under his leadership, the Supreme Sect has developed excellently, growing stronger year by year. The alliance between the Supreme Sect and the Tai Tsong dynasty has proven effective, with both sides brimming with zeal. Gu En considered releasing the inheritance of the heaven-splitting axe. The inheritance contained within the heaven-splitting axe was long negligible, but the sword intent imparted by Gu En was so powerful that no one could lift it. After laying the groundwork for hundreds of thousands of years, it was time to bestow the true inheritance of the heaven-splitting axe. Gu En infused it with a special Primordial Dao Emperor fortune, doing so without drawing any attention. As Gu En had predicted, after finishing his story, the nine-fingered divine monarch wanted to drag Gu En to the old residence of a deceased friend, ignoring the chess game he was about to lose. Thinking of how many times the nine-fingered divine monarch had lost to him, Gu En let it slide. For the time being, Gu En observed Fang Xian while dealing with the nine-fingered divine monarch. By the time he left, no one knew that the supporting Dao sword venerable had ever returned. Sar the Oval Fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The war between the Dao court and the Taiqian dynasty finally concluded, with the Dao court gaining the upper hand. After Zhao Rushan slew the Taiqian son of heaven, the Taiqian dynasty unraveled, descending into chaos akin to the human purgatory. This lengthy war, spanning many years, resulted in countless casualties. As the Taiqian dynasty's fortune dispersed, a blood mist lingered over the Taiqian land, refusing to dissipate for a long time. By slaying the Taiqian son of heaven, Zhao Rushan became renowned across the world, relinquishing the title of prodigy to become a hero recognized by all. Simultaneously, the spiritual energy between heaven and earth began to strengthen, birthing more creations, making immortal cultivation increasingly accessible. Time flew by. 50,000 years had passed since Gu En infused the path of the Great Dao with Primordial Dao Emperor fortune. The Taiqian dynasty became an ancient legend in the human world, with a significant increase in free immortals. The limits of prodigies becoming increasingly exaggerated and the world's order growing more intricate. Within the Dao court, in Shaolan's grotto heaven, Gu En accompanied Xiaolan in cultivation while examining his attribute panel. Name, Gu En, lifespan, 445, 492/31, 076, 970, 562, 704, physique, primordial Dao creation body, cultivation level, Perfect Taoist Great Luo Immortal Realm, his lifespan was growing steadily, but it was still far from 1,000,000,000 years. Guwen planned to attempt a breakthrough after reaching 1,000,000,000,000 lifespan. Though the variables invading the celestial spirit great world were increasing over the years, none posed any threat to him, so he remained unfazed. These variables were normal. Any powerful great thousand world would attract visitors from outer heaven. The celestial spirit great world, while not yet strong, was in a phase of rapid development, attracting beings from other great thousand worlds and dimensions to explore opportunities. The Taiqian dynasty was supposed to perish within a few thousand years but was extended by visitors from outer heaven for 10,000 years. Of course, it wasn't just the Taiqian dynasty that had help from outer heaven, the Dao court did too. The master of the Dao court, Yuan Songzi, originally hailed from another great thousand world. Xiao Lan opened her eyes, gazing at Guwen and sighed, "Brother Gu, I still can't achieve the level of projection, it's too difficult." Although the primordial Dao Emperor doesn't require fighting like the Taoist Emperor, the difficulty is no less. Guwen sat on a tree, playing with the 7-star mirror, smiling. Precisely because it's difficult, it proves its strength. Why rush? You have plenty of years to try. Xiao Lan took a deep breath and curiously asked, "Brother Gu, how many years did it take you to become a primordial Dao Emperor?" "About 1,000,000 years. Guwen replied casually. Hearing this number, Xiao Lan felt relieved yet despaired. 1,000,000 years. Even if her talent was greater than Guwen's, wouldn't it take her at least 500,000 years? She felt a bit exhausted. She stood up and said, "Brother Gu, how about we go out and have a look around?" Guwen jumped down from the tree, pocketing the 7-star mirror, and walked toward Xiao Lan. "What's so good about that mirror that you always carry it with you?" Xiao Lan couldn't help but ask. Her divine sense once peeked at the 7-star mirror but found nothing unusual about it. Guwen replied, "I'm the only one who knows its value." Xiao Lan rolled her eyes. Luckily, the mirror hadn't become sentient, or she would have been more suspicious. Guwen accompanied Xiao Lan out of the grotto heaven, his attention once again focusing on the path of the great Tao. That Feng Xian had actually succeeded in projection. This guy had an extraordinary comprehension on the primordial Emperor road. Guwen eagerly anticipated his achievement of primordial Dao Emperor status. A primordial Dao Emperor needed someone to showcase its splendor. Defeating a Taoist emperor would have even more impact. On the path of the great Tao, atop a meteor, Feng Xian sat in meditation on the edge of a cliff, his red clothes fluttering and white hair flowing. His eyes were closed and his head trembled slightly. Gradually, his brow furrowed, as if enduring some pain. After a long time, Feng Xian suddenly opened his eyes, his pupils trembling as if awakened from a great dream, his emotions out of control. He tried hard to calm himself and showed a look of joy on his face, murmuring to himself, "Is this the creation of the primordial Dao Emperor? I haven't truly undergone reincarnation, yet I possess memories of reincarnation. Whether it's imagination or reality remains unknown. If true, the comprehension method of the primordial Dao Emperor is too incredible." On the path of the great Tao, he mostly heard about the Taoist Emperor. Although there were other fortune levels, none could compare to the Taoist Emperor. The primordial Dao Emperor was different. The mere hundreds of reincarnation memories he received just now left him astounded. He could feel that the real time had not passed for so long. If he could undergo multiple reincarnation enlightenment sessions, his cultivation breakthrough speed would exceed the previous method. With this thought, Feng Xian's heartbeat began to quicken. Primordial Dao Emperor. I never heard of it before. Even if other primordial Dao Emperors exist, they must be few, far fewer than the Taoist emperors. This will be the greatest opportunity of my life. Feng Xian's excitement grew. He closed his eyes, carefully recalling the insights from his prior reincarnation experiences. At the same time, in another void space on the path of the great Tao, a black-armored lion demon arrived beneath a great tree. His form was humanoid yet burly, his head retaining the original shape, with a mane reaching his waist, exuding a strong sense of oppression. He raised his right hand, reaching towards a silver crystal floating beneath the tree branches. What is this? The black-armored lion demon muttered, eyes full of curiosity. He was not alone. With Feng Xian's successful enlightenment, the path of the great Tao gained hundreds of silver crystals, scattered across various void spaces. Most were quietly awaiting those with fate, while some, like the black-armored lion demon, encountered them soon after their appearance. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 679, New Momentum. The Dark Void, a mass of purple clouds floating in front of a bright full moon, with a cliff standing above the clouds, where an old man in a white robe is sitting. He has white hair and a youthful face, with two halos floating behind his head, constantly changing colors, beautiful and mesmerizing. He opens his eyes, pinches his fingers to calculate, his expression becomes strange. He begins to continually deduce, but unfortunately, no matter how he deduces, he cannot unlock the confusion in his heart. A figure suddenly appears behind him, a celestial god dressed in blood armor, with a terrifying aura, white hair fluttering, and a blood flower imprint on his forehead. It is the celestial destruction god. He has another identity, known as Long Mie, the grandson of Emperor Longxin. The celestial destruction god bends and raises his hand, saluting the old man in white, saying, "Master, your disciple has come to see you. How many years has it been? You have finally come. It seems you have successfully refined a dharma body for that entity." The old man in white speaks, his tone calm. The celestial destruction god replies, "Duty calls. The celestial mandate cannot be violated." The celestial mandate cannot be violated? Indeed, it cannot be violated. The old man in white stands up, turns to look at the celestial destruction god, gazing up and down, with a look of gratification in his eyes. Your Tao practice is not bad, proving you haven't wasted your time. You're not unworthy of my cultivation. The old man in white strokes his beard and smiles. The celestial destruction god responds, "Master has cultivated more than just this disciple. Without Master, I would have died long ago." The old man in white shakes his head, turning to gaze into the dark void, while the celestial destruction god looks at him intently. See Teach Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Disciple, your talent is extraordinary, possessing gifts that even the immortal gods find hard to match. From now on, you need not restrain your desire for slaughter. The old man in white says softly, reflections of great explosions flickering in his pupils. The celestial destruction god frowns upon hearing this and asks, "Do you think it is already that time? Even if it hasn't arrived, you must prepare in advance. The changes in the great Tao are becoming increasingly complex, and the struggles within the celestial court are growing fiercer. Who can say how much disaster lies within, and what it will ultimately evolve into?" The old man in white sighs as he speaks. The celestial destruction god remains silent for a moment before saying, "I am not prepared to rely on the talent left by the Long family. The Long family should disappear. I will only cultivate steadily." The old man in white glances at him, saying meaningfully, "It seems someone from the Long family still lives, and you've gained a burden. The old you couldn't wait to be free of restraints." The celestial destruction god replies, "Indeed, some still live, but they have cut ties with the past. I simply do not wish to follow the old path of the Long family, growing stronger through slaughter. To me, that is not the righteous Tao." Hearing this, the old man in white chuckled, shifting his gaze back to the void. Before returning to the celestial court, take a trip along the path of the great Tao. There is new fortune born there. What exactly it is, you shall explore for yourself. The old man in white instructed. The celestial destruction god agreed, saluted him, and then vanished from the spot. Only the old man in white remained on the cliff, standing in front of the bright moon, his figure appearing desolate. Who will be the next celestial emperor? Is this truly just a battle for the celestial emperor? The old man in white muttered to himself, with no one able to answer him. He was questioning himself. Taoist field of the beginningless. Another 10,000 years have passed since Feng Xian's first reincarnation projection successfully appeared. The human world has ushered in a new prosperous age, with the 100 sects vying for supremacy, yet neither the Qianquan sect nor the Supreme sect, despite their strengthening, were able to enter the ranks of the 100 sects of the world. Over the years, besides daily life, Guwen is most concerned with the fortune of the primordial Tao Emperor. Currently, over 300 cultivators are pursuing the primordial Tao Emperor along the path of the Great Tao. More than 1,000 have encountered this opportunity, some perishing in the recent 10,000 years, others giving up on this opportunity. Generally speaking, having over 300 cultivators striving for the primordial Tao Emperor, this destiny is considered to be formed. Although the primordial Tao Emperor does not seek quick strength through victory, the reincarnation projection speeds up cultivators' advancement, possibly resulting in the emergence of the first primordial Tao Emperor within hundreds of thousands of years, which piques Gu An's curiosity. Who exactly will it be? Feng Xian was the first to begin, but new talents have emerged along the path of the Great Tao, with momentum surpassing his. As for the Tao seekers in the celestial spirit great world, they were all acquaintances of Guwen. Their natural abilities did not match the prodigies of the path of the Great Tao, and Guwen would not show favoritism towards them on the primordial Emperor road, as they almost certainly could not become the first primordial Tao Emperor. On this day, within the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guwen plays the flute while watching the celestial battle in the sky. He creates a barrier field, allowing the Blood Prison Great Saint and an Xian to engage in combat, with Shenzhen, the celestial demon child, celestial scion, Tian Bai, Jiangshi, ghost mother of ephemera, Emperor Tianhong, and the white spirit rat watching nearby, their hearts surging and discussing continuously. Why has the Blood Prison Great Saint stopped again? Could it be he's fallen under an illusion technique? An Exin is formidable. It feels like she's toying with the Blood Prison Great Saint. Don't let him hear you say that, hell hold a grudge. Senior sister and Xian is indeed strong. It's entirely unclear how powerful she really is. Did anyone see what divine skills an Xian used? The disciples are endlessly discussing, and Guwen intentionally used a barrier to conceal Nzin's immortal emperor's eye, so the disciples did not witness any change in Nzin's eyes, nor could they feel the power of the immortal emperor's eye. This led to the combat feeling awkward, with the Blood Prison Great Saint intermittently pausing. If not for his formidable corporeal body and abundant chi blood, he would have already been defeated. Compared to Nzin's immortal emperor's eye, Guwen was more pleased with the progress of the Blood Prison Great Saint. The Blood Prison Great Saint had created his own divine skills, allowing his flesh to rapidly regenerate. Even if his body turned to dust, he could recover in a short period. But such recovery requires consuming soul energy, and he began to feel fatigue, a fatigue emanating from the depths of his soul, weakening his control over his body. At this rate, his defeat was inevitable. Guwen pondered whether to send the Blood Prison Great Saint to train along the path of the Great Tao. The Blood Prison Great Saint was well suited to grow stronger through combat, but regrettably, when asked several times before, he stubbornly refused to go. Even though Guwen promised he could return to the beginningless afterward, the Blood Prison Great Saint still did not agree. If the Blood Prison Great Saint were assigned to tasks in the human world, he would go, but the path of the Great Tao is far away, and he always felt that once there, returning shortly would be difficult. No, it wouldn't work. He must be made to go out and train for 100,000 years before returning. Guwen thought silently. Not only to make Blood Prison Great Saint grow stronger but also to reduce the pressure on the other disciples. The Blood Prison Great Saint not only loved to fight but also had a foul mouth. Every time he won, he'd resort to frantically taunting his opponents, so now no one hoped he would win, all were watching his misfire. After some time, the Blood Prison Great Saint was defeated and exited the barrier with an Exin. An Exin, like a celestial being descended to the mortal world, landed beside Guwen, her clothes without any change, appearing not to have undergone any battle. The Blood Prison Great Saint hung his head low, devoid of fighting spirit, his fists clenched tightly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 680 Wuxia Free Immortal, Master, I won. An Xian lightly laughed, causing other disciples to cheer, which made the blood prison great saint even more uncomfortable. To appear magnanimous before the master, he had to force a smile. After Guan offered a few simple remarks, he let an Xian lead the disciples away. The blood prison great saint landed beside Guan, hanging his head, looking utterly forlorn. After the aura of an Xian and the others faded into the distance, he gritted his teeth and said, "Master, next time I will definitely win it back." Thinking about it now, it's truly incredible. Before the creation of the Taoist field of the beginningless, Enzin's talent was so mediocre, hardly worth mentioning compared to other disciples. Yet, after arriving at Wuxia, Enzin's Tao practice advanced rapidly. Recalling the earlier battle, he even felt a chill. Enzin's divine skills were too terrifying. He was besieged by countless Enzins. If not for his Boda's strong self-healing power, he would have long been defeated. The self-healing divine skill he created seemed tailored to showcase Enzin's prowess. With anyone else, it's doubtful they'd witness so many Enzins. The blood prison great saint's heart had never been so defeated. He dared not face Guan's gaze. Although an Exin was Guan's most cherished disciple, he was the only mount. In his view, his position was more special, and he could not afford to lose. Guan seldom saw the blood prison great saint so dejected, asking, "Are you very unwilling?" The blood prison great saint nodded heavily, his usual arrogance gone. "Lost is lost, win back later. An Xian also once lost to you. Even I have opponents I cannot defeat," Guan comforted him. The blood prison great saint took a deep breath, trying to calm his emotions. Guan's lips twitched slightly because he heard the thoughts of the blood prison great saint. The blood prison great saint internally asked, "But have you ever lost? If you achieve the primordial Tao Emperor status earlier than an Exin, perhaps you could surpass her." Guan pointed in a direction. The blood prison great saint looked up at him, reluctantly saying, "She is also chasing after the primordial Tao Emperor. Even if I am one step ahead, she will eventually catch up unless I have stronger divine skills than hers." The suppressive power of the immortal emperor's eye was too strong. After the immortal god reincarnation Emperor Tianhong lost to an Exin, he dared not challenge her again. Only by truly facing Enzin's immortal emperor's eye can one feel that despair. That may not be the case. The divine skills you have created have limitless potential, you just haven't thoroughly explored them. In fact, I have the most confidence in you, but don't tell the other disciples this, Guan said earnestly. Hearing this, the blood prison great saint was instantly excited, his eyes even glistening with tears. These words at this moment gave the blood prison great saint a great encouragement. He swept away the feelings of loss and confusion, becoming full of fighting spirit. He believed his master would not deceive him. "Master, I definitely will not disappoint you," the blood prison great saint promised, also pledging to himself. Guan followed up, "I want to send you to the path of the great Tao for training. Strive to become the first primordial Tao Emperor of Wuxia, and once you achieve it, you can return." Upon hearing this, the blood prison great saint's excitement calmed down. He did not immediately agree, appearing hesitant. He feared that after he left, Guan would adopt another mount. Not to mention, Celestial Cyan and Tian Bai were eyeing his throne. Guan didn't comfort his concerns, joking that if he wanted to take a mount, would he need the blood prison great saint's permission? "I am very interested in the origins of the primordial Tao Emperor and the Taoist Emperor. You must not only grow stronger but also collect information on both, and when you return, I will help you perfect your divine skills," Guan said solemnly. Seeing his serious demeanor, the blood prison great saint dared not refuse, and could only agree. Guan let him rest for a few days, and then would send him to the path of the great Tao. Embracing this arrangement, the blood prison great saint began to look forward to the path of the great Tao. What kind of place is it? He must make a great name for Wuxia. The blood prison great saint thought his master might really send him, allowing him to build rapport along the way. However, once he was ready, the master simply waved his sleeve and sent him to the path of the great Tao. So this is how he's sent. The blood prison great saint's senses were rendered useless. He tightly closed his eyes, thinking bitterly. After a while, he felt his feet touch solid ground, his senses quickly returning to normal, and as he opened his eyes, his pupils widened. Before him was a magnificent Tao intent Qi Sea, vast and boundless. He stood upon a meteor, feeling so small, with the darkness beyond the Tao intent Qi Sea appearing terrifying, as though it could swallow him at any time. What a majestic Tao intent! The blood prison great saint murmured, the last bit of resistance in his heart disappearing completely. In such a place for cultivation, he might truly surpass an Xian again. Sarch * the novelier. T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The departure of the blood prison great saint left a quieter atmosphere in the Taoist field of the beginningless. Upon learning that had been sent by Gu into the path of the great Tao for training, everyone felt a sense of crisis. When the blood prison great saint returns, he will surely be more arrogant. Though they could no longer compete with the blood prison great saint, they did not wish to be mocked for their increasing gap. Thus, the Taoist field of the beginningless entered a period of secluded cultivation. The human world was also changing. As more and more sects rose, the Tao court's suppressive power declined, their control over the outer heaven was broken, and the sects of the human world sent disciples to the outer heaven for training, ushering in the first outer heaven craze of the new era. Reaching the outer heaven immortal stage allowed one to go to the outer heaven, but previously, due to the Tao court, cultivators found it difficult to venture there. As more cultivators went to the outer heaven, its stars began to be claimed. Some fled to the outer heaven, some opened little worlds or dojos there, and some even established sections. The human world was experiencing a flourishing era not seen in a million years. In this context, 100,000 years passed like pages in a book, leaving no trace. In those 100,000 years, in the Taoist field of the beginningless, besides the ghost mother of ephemera, the weakest cultivation level was Tao void profound immortal realm, and an Xian was the first to reach the Zizai immortal realm, becoming the first free immortal among Wuxi's disciples. A 55,000-year-old free immortal, how dazzling! However, Enzin's reputation did not spread in the human world, but Emperor Tianhong could use her as a comparison to the world's prodigies, making him feel incredulous while also motivating him to cultivate harder. In the 2nd century after breaking through to Zizai Immortal, an Xian finally selected a favored disciple. She brought back a 6 or 7-year-old boy to the Taoist field of the beginningless, hoping Guan could bestow a name. This child did not come from the Qingkuan sect but was an orphan from the 9-spirit continent, whose parents were killed by a demon beast. Had it not been for Enzin's intervention, he too would have perished. This experience reminded Guan of Enhao from back then. Let's call him Enzizai. Guan looked at the timid boy hiding behind an Xian, murmuring. An Xian asked with a smile, "Is it because I've just reached the Zizai immortal realm?" Guan shook his head, saying, "I just hope he's different from your senior brother, free from many burdens, and I hope in this life he can live freely and for himself. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 681. Vile Ancestor, Carefree and at ease, huh? An Xian murmured to herself, thinking of Enhao, her mood somewhat heavy. When she was a child, her parents were eaten by demons. If Enhao hadn't desperately protected her, she would have died too. In her heart, Enhao was like her own brother. Even though they only depended on each other for a few years, before Enhao soared far away, she constantly thought of him. Enhao was like an eagle, never stopping, always soaring high, with missions constantly appearing in his path, ultimately dying for all living beings. In this life, he was reincarnated as Tianhao, yet he had to head to the misty immortal court for the sake of the celestial spirit great world. After knowing Enhao's destiny, Xianxia no longer resented this primordial ancestor. Instead, he took Enhao as a goal, wanting to surpass and how to prove that family's descendants were not a burden on Enhao. Young Enzizai did not yet understand the meaning of his name. When an Xian fell silent, he couldn't help but shout to Guan, "I have a name, I don't want to be called Enzizai." Guan asked with a smile, "Then what's your name?" "My mother calls me Little Spring." "You can keep that name, people can have more than one name." Gu En's words made Zizai feel much more relaxed. For some reason, being renamed made him very nervous, as if he was being sold. At this time, Xinzhen, the celestial demon child, and others arrived one after another, curious about Nzin's disciples' talent. And Zizai's talent was naturally not lacking, with an ultimate lifespan of 9,999 years as well. On the Nine-Spirit continent, orphans like him were not in the minority, especially when the timeline was extended to tens of thousands of years. In the long years, such tragedies were countless. And Xian never deliberately managed these unless they appeared right before her. And Zizai attracted Nzin's attention because he invoked the rules of heaven and earth in his despair, even though he had no cultivation level at all. However, the ultimate lifespan of 9,999 years is not uncommon in today's human world. Physical aptitude is no longer the most important. Unseen, untouchable comprehension determines how far a cultivator can go. And Zizai's adorable appearance quickly won everyone's pity. Gu En did not plan to teach Zizai, conveniently giving Xian a chance to hone her teaching skills. And Zizai's arrival broke the quiet atmosphere of the dojo, and the disciples stopped retreating, beginning to accompany Zizai's growth. This was Wuxi's first third-generation disciple. Even if the disciples had competitive hearts in teaching and passing on skills, they hoped Zizai would excel. Search *the Navire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Thus, everyone took turns teaching Zizai. In the following decade, the Taoist field of the beginningless was quite lively. Though Zizai was an orphan, he was not solitary. In fact, he was somewhat carefree, often causing chaos in the dojo. At 17, Zizai had already formed a nascent soul, with outstanding talent, filling all the Wuxia disciples with confidence and expectation. In the summer, Gu En was reading on a large tree by the mountain stream, enjoying the cool breeze. A figure appeared out of thin air beneath the tree, looking up at him. It was Zizai. He wore a fitted blue and white robe, his long hair casually tied with a cloth band. His handsome face still bore a hint of childlike innocence. "Hey, ancestor, why are you reading again? What book is so interesting?" And Zizai called out. His divine sense couldn't approach Gu En, so he didn't know what Gu En was reading. Since childhood, Gu En hadn't taught him cultivation, but under everyone's guidance, he knew the ancestor was the most powerful person in the world. However, Gu En liked to tease him. When he was young, Gu En would sometimes suddenly yank his pants, embarrassing him in public, so he didn't speak to Gu En with much reverence and even harbored some hostility. In his heart, this ancestor was too harsh. Whenever the uncles praised him, the ancestor would always criticize him, pointing out his shortcomings. The most crucial part was these flaws indeed existed, making him feel aggrieved. "This is a book for adults, don't ask." Gu En replied casually. Although he didn't teach Zizai, he quite liked the boy. And Zizai's arrival indeed made the dojo lively, life more interesting. Sometimes, Gu En had to admit he was getting old. Elders like children the most, he wasn't like this before. After hearing this, Zizai became more curious about the book in Gu En's hands but was displeased with Gu En's words, insisting he was already grown up. "Master asked me to tell you that the Magic Battle Conference of the Qianquan sect is about to begin and asked if you would like to go watch?" And Zizai continued to ask, very curious about this matter. Since coming to the Taoist field of the beginningless, he hadn't been out and was curious about everything outside. "I will go to watch, but I won't go with you all." And Zizai pouted, waved his fist at Gu En, and then disappeared from where he stood. He was already eager to head to the Qianquan sect. Gu En didn't care about his small actions and continued reading, thoughts dwelling on the path of the Great Tao. The Blood Prison Great Saint had already successfully carried out a reincarnation projection, considered stepping on the road of the primordial Tao Emperor. Now, over 1,000 beings had stepped onto the primordial Emperor road, and although no one truly became a primordial Tao Emperor, many forces were investigating the primordial Tao Emperor, even including the Celestial Court. Gu En saw a celestial god investigating the primordial Tao Emperor and even engaging in dialogue with one of the contenders for the primordial Tao Emperor. This celestial god seemed familiar to him, and although the other possessed the destiny of the celestial court, which could block deductions, he instantly noticed the resemblance between the celestial god and Long Xen. He vaguely speculated in his heart. Even if this celestial god had nothing to do with the Long family, Guwen wouldn't deliberately suppress them. He had anticipated today's scenario when he opened the Primordial Dao Emperor. He wasn't worried about anyone discovering him through the fortune of the Primordial Dao Emperor. The fortune of the Primordial Dao Emperor had already been established, equivalent to the Great Dao. The Great Dao is boundless. Who could trace it back to its root? Feng Xian grew well on the Primordial Emperor road, his understanding of the Great Dao far surpassing those of the same realm after multiple reincarnation projections. Guwen believed he wouldn't lose if he fought with someone of the same realm on the Emperor road. This indicated that the Primordial Dao Emperor indeed held potential not inferior to that of the Daoist Emperor. After observing for an hour, Guwen turned over and leapt down, tucking the green hero travelogue into his chest, then headed towards the Qiankuan sect. He wasn't going to watch the Magic Battle Conference of the Prodigies, but because an old friend had arrived at the Qiankuan sect. This old friend was none other than Profound Celestial Intent, the writer of the Green Hero Travelogue. After traveling the world for hundreds of thousands of years, it was the first time he came to the Qiankuan sect, bringing no particular purpose, just happening to arrive here. Guwen looked forward to meeting him. They truly hadn't seen each other for hundreds of thousands of years, and Guwen's Green Hero Travelogue was bought from the human world, not obtained directly from Profound Celestial Intent. Meanwhile, Profound Celestial Intent was strolling through the bustling main city of the Qiankuan sect. He had visited many flourishing sects like this. Walking amidst the crowd, he observed the ethos of this sect, seeking inspiration. This Qiankuan sect is indeed remarkable, not only deeply rooted but I haven't witnessed a single act of bullying and oppressing the weak, truly deserves to be the leader of the righteous Dao in this region. Profound Celestial Intent marveled internally, involuntarily thinking of the supreme sect. Since Guwen left, he hadn't returned, unbeknownst if today's supreme sect still possessed such a spirit of the righteous Dao. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 682. The style of a Grandmaster. Profound Celestial Intent walked on the streets of the Qiankuan sect, thinking about the Supreme Sect. Although he missed the Supreme Sect, he had no desire to return. He did not want to shoulder too much responsibility, he desired more to roam the world freely. Even if the Supreme Sect had the extraordinary opportunities left by the supporting Dao Sword Venerable, he still did not wish to go back. Compared to the cultivation level, he had more pursuits. In his view, if one lived only to live longer, it would be very dull. He enjoyed experiencing the dust and grime of the human world, interacting with different people, and he liked writing these experiences down, hoping that those destined to see them would make his life worthwhile. Of course, the reason he was willing to stay away from the Supreme Sect was that Guwen had left. Although Guwen was gone, the sword intent left at the heaven repairing platform remained, showing that Guwen still had affection for the Supreme Sect. With someone protecting the Supreme Sect, he had no worries. "Hey, fellow Daoist, you look unfamiliar. Is this your first time here?" A voice interrupted Profound Celestial Intent's thoughts. He turned his head to see a middle-aged cultivator approaching. This person was wearing an elegant blue robe, his demeanor serious, exuding an extraordinary aura. Profound Celestial Intent stopped, waited for him to approach, and then spoke. "I am Profound Celestial Intent. Indeed, it is my first time visiting the Qiankuan sect. I came to broaden my horizons after hearing about your grand assembly." He had entered the Qiankuan sect openly, registered his identity, and handed over spirit stones, so he was not worried about any trouble. The middle-aged cultivator spoke softly. "I have a few books here that can help you better understand the Qiankuan sect. Would you like to look at them?" Turns out he was promoting books. Profound Celestial Intent was somewhat disappointed. He couldn't discern the man's cultivation level and had thought he was a great cultivator. Now it seemed the man likely possessed some secret treasure, and his cultivation was probably not high. "How many spirit stones?" Profound celestial intent asked. Being new here, he didn't want to instigate trouble. If it wasn't too expensive, he could consider it a good deed. 100 pieces of top-grade spirit stones, the middle-aged man said seriously. So expensive? Forget it. Profound celestial intent shook his head and walked away. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man blocked him again, making him annoyed and ready to get angry. The middle-aged man raised his right hand, twisted his fingers to reveal 7 books, and profound celestial intent was drawn to their titles. Qianquan's Secret History, Elder's Apricot Loft Tour, That Night, That Wind, Those Emotions. Just from the titles, profound celestial intent sensed an author's magnificent literary accomplishment, as if he saw a literary giant comparable to himself. You definitely won't regret buying them. The middle-aged man said earnestly, as though imparting a world-class secret manual. Profound celestial intent asked, "May I take a look at a couple of pages?" The middle-aged man immediately took out a book and handed it to him. He accepted it, flipped a page casually, and was astounded. "I'll buy it. Do you have any more?" Profound celestial intent asked resolutely, determinedly. "No more, but there will be more in the future. If you're still here when the new books come out, I'll find you," the middle-aged man replied, shaking his head, always serious, leaving one unable to imagine him doing such things. His attitude greatly impressed profound celestial intent. What kind of conviction is this? See Ditch Oval Fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. May I ask for your name, fellow Taoist? After the transaction, profound celestial intent raised his hand to salute and asked, his tone full of respect. The middle-aged man returned the salute and then left with a single sentence, "I am Xianxia." Xianxia? Profound celestial intent remembered the name, deciding to write it into his book. Subsequently, profound celestial intent lost interest in sightseeing and quickly found an inn to savor the newly acquired treasure. Elsewhere, the Magic Battle Conference of the Qianquan sect officially began. And Zizai followed an Xen to see the excitement. They were warmly received by the Qianquan sect's senior members. Hearing that Zizai was Zin's disciple made the senior members gaze at him fervently. Wuxia previously sent Tian Hao to the Qianquan sect, a person who truly made the Qianquan sect famous worldwide, bearing profound significance. An Xen was Wuxi's eldest disciple. To be taken as her disciple meant that Zizai must be an extraordinary existence. However, they did not dare to recruit rashly, they simply endeavored to please Zizai. In the pavilion observing the battle, Yuan Luo sat on a chair, looking far towards the pavilion where the elders gathered, his eyes landing on Zizai, frowning slightly. He naturally recognized an Xen and respected her greatly. In his youth, an Xen had even given him a spell. Yet seeing the elder's attitude made him somewhat unhappy. The Qianquan sect was fine everywhere except for a lack of confidence, always needing Wuxi's assistance. The 20 prodigies previously sent by Wuxia were indeed strong. A few even made him troubled, but these people stuck together and never truly integrated into the Qianquan sect. Sometimes he worried they might betray them. In his view, where in this world is there perpetual giving? Why did Wuxia help the Qianquan sect so much? If in the future, Wuxia needed reciprocation, how could the Qianquan sect refuse? Always relying on others, when can they become independent? The Tao court is like this, with too many factions, always clashing, unable to truly rule the world. Sometimes one decision stirs internal debate for decades, centuries, and even the master of the Tao court lacks absolute power. Yuan Luo noted Zizai's appearance, and Zizai seemed to sense something, turning to look at him. Their eyes met in the distance, and Yuan Luo quickly averted his gaze. Zizai frowned slightly, feeling uncomfortable under Yuan Luo's stare. That person's name is Yuan Luo. He was once our Qianquan sect's top genius, quite remarkable. I can have him teach you divine skills, Yiqingshan said to Zizai beside him, smiling. Sitting beside the sect hierarch, such treatment stirred not only Yuan Luo's interest. Many disciples discussed Zizai's background. Zizai shook his head. Thank you, sect hierarch, for the offer, but I have my master and martial uncle's guidance, no need to trouble you. His words shook Yi Qingshan and the senior members. So many of Wuxi's disciples teach him? It seems Wuxia intends to nurture him heavily. This intensified the senior members' desire to recruit Zizai. They wouldn't doubt Wuxia but instead believe Zizai's future was boundless, destined to become renowned worldwide. LV Xian, Qin Chuan, and Sheng Tian already had world-renowned names. This young man was likely to surpass these three. Zizai felt uncomfortable with their gazes, so he could only direct his attention to the ongoing combat ahead. In the dim void, countless meteors drifted, while afar, nebulas shifted their forms, wondrously beautiful. Fang Xian, clad in red, walked on a sword, his robe fluttering, embodying the grace of an immortal. Fang Xian's gaze was forward, his eyes calm, but his heart was slightly anxious. I wonder what the peers will think of me? Fang Xian journeyed to this void, sensing the destiny of the primordial Dao Emperor here, not the true primordial Dao Emperor, as the destiny was lesser, but close. He had studied the primordial Dao Emperor for many years, encountering a bottleneck now, urgently wishing to exchange insights with others. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 683. The most idle person. Fang Xian journeyed through the meteor ocean, feeling the increasingly intense destiny unique to the pursuers of the primordial Dao Emperor, which made his heart more uneasy. On the path of the great Dao, cultivators pursuing the Daoist Emperor would fight upon meeting. He wondered if those chasing the primordial Dao Emperor would do the same? To become the primordial Dao Emperor, there is no need to kill each other, which is why he dared to come. But the path of the great Dao has no rules, and there will always be those who recklessly act, so he cannot guarantee that such interactions won't cause him trouble. Regardless, he had already come. Fang Xian released his aura, wanting to let the other party sense him. Do you also wish to become the primordial Dao Emperor? A voice came from ahead, surprisingly that of the Blood Prison Great Saint. In the depths of the void, the Blood Prison Great Saint sat in meditation on a meteor, eyes open, looking towards the direction Fang Xian flew from. Appreciation showed in his eyes, not just because Fang Xian was a kindred spirit, but also because Fang Xian's attire suited his taste. I am Fang Xian, indeed wishing to become the primordial Dao Emperor. I hope I haven't disturbed you, fellow Daoist. Fang Xian's voice came with a tone of anticipation. He did not immediately approach the Blood Prison Great Saint but maintained a safe distance. The Blood Prison Great Saint stood up, gazing from afar at Fang Xian, scrutinizing him. Fang Daoist, I did want to meet other kindred spirits. Would you come over for a chat? The Blood Prison Great Saint responded, his tone somewhat warm, making Fang Xian breathe a sigh of relief. The Blood Prison Great Saint had long wanted to converse with a kindred spirit, not for cultivation, but to complete the tasks assigned by his master. He came to the path of the Great Dao not only for cultivation but also to gather intel on the Daoist Emperor and the primordial Dao Emperor. Fang Xian appeared in front of the Blood Prison Great Saint out of thin air, raising his hand in greeting. The Blood Prison Great Saint smiled, warmly grabbing Fang Xian's wrist and pulling him to sit down for a chat. Fang Xian remained slightly vigilant, but as their conversation deepened, he grew fond of the Blood Prison Great Saint. The Blood Prison Great Saint began by sharing his insights without reservation, speaking boldly without probing Fang Xian. Having lived until today, Fang Xian had experienced a lot of deceit and could discern that the Blood Prison Great Saint bore no scheming, only infinite curiosity about the primordial Dao Emperor. He too was filled with curiosity about the primordial Dao Emperor, feeling he could enjoy a pleasant rapport with the Blood Prison Great Saint. After the Blood Prison Great Saint finished sharing his insights, Fang Xian too spoke without reservation, which also gained the Blood Prison Great Saint's favor. This person is good, can befriend. This was the Blood Prison Great Saint's sentiment. Having been on the path of the Great Dao for so many years, he felt lonely, long wanting someone to talk to. The two felt an instant connection, lamenting not having met earlier. When the Blood Prison Great Saint revealed he came from the celestial spirit Great World, under the primordial sword master, Fang Xian was shocked, which puzzled the blood prison great saint, who inquired about it. After hesitating for a moment, Feng Xian disclosed his origin. Upon hearing that Feng Xian was once a battle court disciple and participated in the attack on the celestial spirit Great World, later being exterminated by the supporting Dao Sword Venerable, the blood prison great saint couldn't help but laugh. Just when Feng Xian thought the blood prison great saint would mock him, the blood prison great saint laughed and said, "The fact that you survived under my master's hand means you weren't meant to die, although it must be confessed that my master showed mercy. To be honest, I've had the same experience as you." Feng Xian was surprised, not expecting the blood prison great saint to have had a similar experience. He immediately inquired about his past, and the blood prison great saint began to recount his tale. Knowing that the blood prison great saint came from the mortal world, nearly killing the supporting Dao Sword Venerable's disciple after ascending, and was eventually subdued by the Sword Venerable, gaining an unprecedented opportunity, made Feng Xian hold the supporting Dao Sword Venerable in even greater esteem. Let alone, in that battle, the supporting Dao Sword Venerable really could have annihilated all battle court beings. This supporting Dao Sword Venerable was truly merciful, a deservedly enlightened great power. He felt that the Sword Venerable acted so, considering that many of the battle court disciples were against their will, much like himself, having no choice but to follow orders from the sect. After their honest exchange, their relationship improved, and the blood prison great saint proposed they become sworn brothers, to Feng Xian's delight. They immediately knelt and swore to the supporting Dao Sword Venerable and the Great Dao, which left Guwen at the Taoist field of the beginningless both laughing and crying. Karma is indeed interesting. Although he could not predict how the primordial Dao Emperor would develop, he could precisely forecast the futures of the blood prison great saint and Feng Xian. The two would venture together on the path of the Great Tao, even expanding their sworn brotherhood to include other prodigies chasing the primordial Tao Emperor. Eventually, the blood prison great saint would bid farewell to his brothers and return alone to the celestial spirit Great World, while Feng Xian and the others would continue to make a name for themselves on the path of the Great Tao, with their future being immeasurable. Millennia passed swiftly. One day, in early summer, Guwen was fishing in the dojo, holding a fishing rod in one hand and a book in the other, a new work by Profound Celestial Intent. Through his minor manipulations, Profound Celestial Intent remained in the Qianquan sect, waiting for more books to appear before him, unaware that these books contain Tao intent, causing Profound Celestial Intent to frequently achieve enlightenment and steadfastly decide to linger a while longer. Yes, just linger a little longer, he's destined to roam the earth. See the novel, The Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. With this mindset, Profound Celestial Intent eagerly anticipated more works from that mysterious author. Even if it meant waiting 100 years for a book, he thought it worth it. As Guwen enjoyed a peaceful moment of relaxation, a figure appeared behind him. "Ancestor, Master won't let me go out, fearing that if I leave, I won't return. But I just want to go out for some experience and I will come back eventually." And Zizai said aggrievedly, his temperament still youthful at 1,000 years old, because he had yet to experience life's trials, and he knew this, hence his desire to gain experience, just like the prodigies of the Qianquan sect. Guwen, with his back turned to him, responded casually, "You underestimate the hold of the mortal world. Once you go out, you might not return. I can't make this decision. If you want to go out, persuade your master. Frankly, even if you don't come back, I won't mind." Although Guwen didn't mind Zizai, he cared a lot about Nzizai. Knowing how much Nzizai cherished Nzizai, he didn't want to interfere with Nzizai's life. Hearing his words, Nzizai couldn't help but glare at him, feeling his ancestor's nature was as perverse as ever. Nzizai rolled his eyes and asked, "Ancestor, how about if I go to visit my uncles?" LV Xian and the others were far from the Nine-Spirit continent, a journey long enough for him to gain experience. "Ask your master. Can you just speak a little bit for me? Ask your master." No matter how Nzizai tried to persuade him, Guwen remained unmoved, leaving him quite frustrated. Just then, an Xan appeared beside him, scaring him into bowing quickly. An Exan frowned, saying solemnly, "Haven't I told you not to disturb your ancestors' cultivation without reason? Is this considered cultivation?" And Zizai couldn't help but retort. Ever since he became aware, he had never seen Guan cultivate. In his opinion, among the beginningless, the most idle was Guan. Unpleased, and Zin's eyes flashed and she scolded, "Kneel and apologize." And Zizai felt aggrieved to the point of bursting, yet chose to obediently kneel. Guan turned around, smiling at Zizai, making his eyes redden. An Exan looked towards Guan, asking, "Master, can you predict whether he will return if he goes out?" And Zizai suddenly felt hopeless, believing Guan would certainly not speak up for him. "He will return, but he will go through many events." Guan casually replied, surprising Zizai. Guan had not spoken. He had discerned Zizai's destiny upon leaving the dojo. Eventually, the kid would return, but before that, he'd face many trials, perhaps bearing some missions. Of course, these missions were only within the celestial spirit great world and weren't significant in Guan's eyes. But as long as this kid could resolve them on his own, he was disinclined to interfere. And Zizai was certainly not the last Wuxia disciple. There would be new disciples in the future, so Guan did not consider him crucial. And Xian understood her master's implication. And Zizai would experience many things, and they would undoubtedly be quite challenging. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 684 Inch. Are you ready to face life's challenges? You will meet many people, and you may make enemies. Perhaps you will fall in love with someone, but in the end, it might be unfulfilled. Even so, you still want to go out? An Exan looked at Zizai and asked, her tone melancholy. And Zizai was overjoyed upon hearing this because his master finally relented. Gain or lose, it is my fate. I just want to see, not necessarily to gain anything. And Zizai looked up at his master and answered seriously. Watching his expression, an Exan sighed, took out her Dao treasure, the 6 paths mirror, and handed it to Zizai, saying, "This is my magical treasure. I'll lend it to you. Go visit Qinchuan. Show him this mirror, and he will see you. Tell him I would like you to follow him to cultivate swordsmanship." As Zizai took the 6 paths mirror and was about to say something, an Exan handed him a jade pendant, saying it could guide his direction. "Go now, or I'll change my mind." An Exian said with an indifferent expression. Guan glanced back at Zizai and laughed. "Look at you making your master so angry, such impiety." Because of what he said earlier, Zizai initially felt grateful, but now that sense of gratitude vanished. "Master, I will come back." And Zizai quickly knelt, kowtowed to an Exan, then stood up, glared at Guan, and turned to leave. An Exan watched as Zizai disappeared into the horizon and then bowed towards Guan, silently departing. Guan didn't console an Exan. Instead, he had a mischievous feeling as if watching a play. People always long for freedom. The harder the challenges, the stronger the desire for freedom. Guan said leisurely. He had taken on many disciples and knew this very well. However, everything must be experienced. An Exian wanting to take a disciple has to face the disciple's mindset. After all, a disciple is human, with thoughts of their own. At this moment, the fishing rod quivered, and finally, a fish took the bait. Guan immediately gripped the fishing rod with both hands, starting a battle of wits with the fish in the lake. Water splashed, scattering onto the leaves, with sunshine illuminating the droplets, making them appear as if they held tiny worlds within. And Zizai's departure once again left the Taoist field of the beginningless quiet, with other disciples also starting to retreat into seclusion for cultivation. For Guan, the liveliness or quietness of the dojo wasn't the most important aspect. Time seemed to speed up with each passing moment. 800 years later, Guan returned to this spot to fish, holding a book in his other hand while waiting for a fish to take the bait. The sunlight was bright, making the lake's surface glisten, and a gentle breeze blew through, ruffling his hair. A figure emerged from the woods behind him, a man in a warrior's cloth robe, with disheveled hair, a weathered face, and stubble around his mouth. His eyes carried a look of sorrow. It was Zizai. Compared to 800 years ago, he was a different person, devoid of his previous spirit, and his demeanor appeared desolate. And Zizai looked at Gu in his back, somewhat dazed, with a slight change in his eyes. He suddenly recalled the scene from years ago when he left, with the ancestor also fishing here, turning his back to him, the silhouette unchanged, giving him a sense of traversing time and space. Disciple greets the ancestor. And Zizai approached Guin from behind, bowing respectfully, his voice filled with melancholy. It's good to be back. Guin replied without turning his head to look at Zizai. He already knew what Zizai had gone through over these years. 800 years seemed like a day to him, but for many, it was a long, lengthy passage of time. During these 800 years, Zizai experienced many things, witnessing the tragic deaths of brothers, those he loved, unable to protect those who trusted him. Too many blows had crushed his former vivacity. If not for Nzin's six paths mirror protecting him, he wouldn't know how many times he would have died. And Zizai raised his eyes to look at Guin, taking a deep breath, asking, Ancestor, is there truly justice and fairness in this world? Why do some commit atrocities but still enjoy people's adoration, and even when their sect knows of their crimes, they cover for them? He was referring to a great cultivator of Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal from one of the 100 sects, the Beidu sect. The disciple of that great cultivator worked for him, capturing mortals among the people, and even some cultivators fell victim, committing all sorts of atrocities. And Zizai and his friends, upon witnessing injustice, offended the great cultivator's disciple, triggering a series of grudges. And Zizai was hunted for over 100 years and once lay in hiding for 100 years before finally killing that disciple, only to uncover the truth. Helpless before Taoist Zhang Zizai Immortal's suppression, he could only watch his beloved ones dying. Even the Beidu sect continued to hunt him, and if not for his timely escape to Chunchuan sword sect, he would have already been killed. The sword sect was nowhere near as powerful as the Beidu sect, yet the legend of the beginningless still lingered in the world, giving the Beidu sect pause. The path of cultivating immortality does not lie in the short term. What you see is just a fragment of the vast mortal world. In years to come, what puzzles you will surely have answers. Those evils and seemingly invincible will also be obliterated, while right and wrong will be judged by future generations. Guin responded absent-mindedly. For disciples venturing out, he only ensured their survival but would not aid in revenge, so he wouldn't interfere with Zizai's vendettas. If he desired revenge, he must cultivate diligently and rely on himself. And Zizai's gaze became complex as he continued questioning, Ancestor, you must have lived for a long time. In your view, does justice prevail in this world, or is it a matter of survival of the fittest? Looking back, no matter who laughs last, when facing history, they all must raise the banner of justice. This indicates that at least in this world, justice is what all beings desire, and it cannot be shaken. This was Guin's most patient response to Zizai, without any mockery or ridicule, answering each of his questions seriously. After hearing, Zizai fell into silence. A thought also flashed through his mind, and that was to kneel and ask the ancestor to avenge him. If the Beidu sect could stand up for their disciple, perhaps the ancestor would as well. But the thought came quickly and disappeared just as fast. Xianxia the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. After all, despite Beidu sect's injustice, it was he who actively intervened. Moreover, back then, neither the ancestor nor the master wanted him to go out, but he insisted on venturing out for training. Sometimes, he wondered if those people might have escaped a disaster if he hadn't gone out. The more Zizai thought about it, the more uncomfortable he became, even nearly unable to breathe. I can go into the reincarnation and retrieve all the people you care about, bringing them back to life. But you have to consider one point: in their next life, they might fare better, or after being resurrected, they might endure more suffering. You cannot predict any circumstance. Gu's voice floated over, making Zizai's face change dramatically, his eyes revealing an expression of disbelief. Into reincarnation? Resurrection? And Zizai knew the ancestor was powerful, but he never grasped just how powerful. Yet hearing the ancestor's words today, he was shocked, as if the entire world before him instantly brightened. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 685. Removing the Son of Heaven. Zizai was shaken by Gu En's words for a long time. When he came to his senses, he began to seriously ponder the words of the ancestor. Should he choose revival? He indeed lacked the courage to say he could protect others for a lifetime, let alone those old friends who had been dead for many years and might have already reincarnated. He remembered his master once said that reincarnation is natural, and many great powers even rely on reincarnation for cultivation. Knowing that his old friends had entered reincarnation brought him some comfort. He originally thought that his old friends would be lost forever, with no hope for reincarnation. After contemplating for a long time, Zizai looked at Guan and replied, "Let things take their natural course. I don't want to interfere in their lives anymore, but I will strive to cultivate, avenge them, and fulfill my mission." The brother closest to him had said before dying that perhaps he was the hope to overthrow the Beidou sect, that he would become the savior. In the eyes of those people, the Beidou sect was the most powerful existence, covering the skies with one hand, and Zizai had also felt the strength of the Beidou sect. For now, he couldn't think of how to topple the Beidou sect. The human world was vast, and almost every place he had been to was under the control of the Beidou sect. Even when encountering cultivators of the Qianxia sect, they were full of dread for the Beidou sect. From a young age, Zizai had been instilled with the idea that his ancestor was the strongest, but after going out once, this thought wavered. Even knowing the ancestor could enter reincarnation, he did not feel that the ancestor could reverse the fortunes with sheer personal power. After hearing Zizai's choice, Guan said nothing more. Zizai then paid his respects and turned to leave. Zizai's aura attracted the attention of the dojo disciples, who left their seclusion one after another to seek out Zizai. Guan continued fishing, but his ears were eavesdropping on their conversations. When the Wuxia disciples learned of Zizai's experiences, they were filled with righteous indignation. Even the celestial demon child wanted to visit the Beidou sect, but in the end, was subdued by an Xen. "Uncles, I will take this revenge personally. From now on, I will train diligently. I have seen the worldly affairs of the human world, and I will not let you down again." Zizai said earnestly, having reignited his fighting spirit after conversing with the ancestor and many mentors. Though he had lost much, he was not left with nothing. He not only had to seek revenge but also to protect the Wuxia. Emperor Tanhong snorted and said, "What Beidou sect? When you want revenge in the future, I will accompany you. Rest assured, you shall collect the heads of your enemies." Tia the Oval Fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Zizai couldn't help but look at Emperor Tianhong. Of all the uncles, Emperor Tianhong was the one he respected and feared the most, for Emperor Tianhong rarely spoke, often just watching him in silence. Though Emperor Tianhong didn't like talking to him, he had taught him spells, making him family in Zizai's heart. Moreover, Zizai believed that Emperor Tianhong could very well be the second strongest within the Wuxia, next only to the ancestor, and the aura exuded by Emperor Tianhong made him aspire. Hearing such grand words from Emperor Tianhong, Zizai did not question it. Instead, it made his heart warm, filling him with a profound sense of security. With such mentors around, the unease brought by the Beidou sect gradually dissipated. An Xen glanced at Emperor Tianhong and said, "You should still cultivate diligently." Emperor Tianhong shifted his gaze and did not retort. "Nephew, tell us what the current human world is like?" Celestial Saiyan looked at Zizai and asked curiously. Zizai nodded and began to describe the landscapes he had seen, including the sword sect founded by Chen Chuan. The Wuxia disciples had also gone out to train before, comparing their memories with Zizai's descriptions, which made them feel the world had changed greatly. Unfortunately, they could not grasp from Zizai's words what the top cultivation level in the human world was now. When Zizai mentioned that the ninth heaven of the immortal path was the Zizai immortal realm, his face was filled with a look of longing, which almost made the crowd laugh, but they restrained themselves and tactfully did not expose it. Within the Qi Sea of the path of the Great Tao, the stars shone brilliantly, and a beam of golden light swept across the top of the Qi Sea, countless figures advancing within it, all donned in golden battle armor, with an imposing and unstoppable aura. Zhang Buku and Su Yu walked amidst the celestial army, rather inconspicuous. Their gazes were fixed on the hulking figure at the forefront of the army. Celestial Calming God. Celestial Calming God was clad in heavy and commanding celestial armor, wielding a large saber, with Dharma aspects ebbing and flowing around him as he walked. Are we dealing with the chaos evil demon again this time? Zhang Buku asked Su Yu in a low voice, while other heavenly soldiers were also discussing, all very excited. To be able to enter the celestial army, one must be a peerless talent and a great power from various realms, and they only got excited about combat. In great battles, it's the easiest to seize destiny and accumulate merit. Their goal is to become a celestial god like the celestial calming god. Su Yu replied, probably not. If it were the chaos evil demon, there would have been word of it long ago. There hasn't been a whisper, which means that perhaps what's happening next isn't by the will of the Zhangtian but a personal matter of the immortal gods. His gaze swept from side to side, seemingly searching for someone. A personal matter of the immortal gods? Zhang Buku was even more puzzled. Do not assume the immortal gods only act for all living beings. They too have their struggles over interests. Su Yu said, his face calm beyond measure. Shedding his beggar appearance, even wearing the heavenly soldier's battle armor, he looked unsuited, unlike Zhang Buku who seemed imposing and majestic. Why is this not about seeking treasures for the immortal gods? How do you conclude it's an internal struggle among the immortal gods? Zhang Buku pursued further. He had long realized Su Yu wasn't simple. In the Tai's great world, Su Yu already acted as if omniscient. Now that they were within the celestial army, Su Yu could still answer his questions, filling him with confusion. Based on their tens of thousands of years of life and death bonds, however, he trusted Su Yu wouldn't harm him. Because this is the path of the Great Tao, a place that cannot be deduced, and where the destiny of the celestial court cannot encompass. Acting here won't be discovered by the celestial court, and even if an immortal god falls here, it's hard to find the true culprit. Su Yu's words made Zhang Buku frown, and the surrounding heavenly soldiers, upon hearing this, inquired with Su Yu. The two had joined the celestial army for hundreds of thousands of years and made many friends. Su Yu had no reservations and answered whoever asked him. The celestial calming god at the forefront seemed not to notice him and never looked back. Time swiftly passed. The golden light extended infinitely, and the celestial army's steps never halted, as though trudging along an endless path. For a long time, a vast and overwhelming pressure emanated from ahead, enveloping tens of thousands of heavenly soldiers within the army, causing them all to change their expression. Celestial calming god halted his steps, and with his pause, all heavenly soldiers followed suit, feeling the terrifying pressure from the front, standing solemnly and not daring to speak. Celestial calming god, do you truly intend to annihilate us to the bitter end? A voice filled with murderous intent resounded from the front, the tone full of indignation. Celestial calming god's face was expressionless as he said, choosing the wrong team, picking the wrong camp, one should face a fate of endless calamity, no matter where you flee. You should be grateful that it's me coming instead of that immortal monarch. The mysterious voice followed, ridiculous, even the Son of Heaven dares to eliminate you. Your fate and that of Huang Feng immortal monarch will be worse than mine. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 686, Myriad Supreme Palm Son of Heaven? Huang Feng Immortal Monarch? Zhang Buku, upon hearing these two names, felt himself being swept into a terrifying conflict among the immortal gods. However, he did not feel afraid as he had no choice in the matter. The heavens have their own justice. Accept the celestial punishment. The celestial calming god raised a giant sword, and a boundless burst of mana erupted, forming a towering Dharma aspect tens of thousands of feet tall, also wielding a sword. Without waiting for the celestial common god's command, the Dharma aspect swung its blade, as if Pangu was splitting heaven and earth, cutting out a dazzling white light that seemed to want to cleave the cosmic void before it in half. The Qi sea below the great Tao churned violently, creating a spectacle of unparalleled grandeur. All the heavenly soldiers held their breath, their eyes fixed intently forward, the bright light reflecting on their faces, their expressions so stern and unyielding. It wasn't the first time they had witnessed the celestial common god in action, so they were not shocked, but each time they felt the immense power of the celestial common god, their hearts would stir with hot-blooded ambition. They too wanted to become such a dominating and powerful celestial god. As the celestial common god's Dharma aspect swung its blade, the cosmic void ahead shattered in the white light, revealing an incredibly massive figure from the darkness, shrouded entirely in black aura, far larger than the 10,000-foot-high Dharma aspect of the celestial common god, making all the heavenly soldiers feel insignificant by comparison. Many heavenly soldiers were startled. This figure's demeanor seemed related to the celestial court, yet their appearance was akin to a chaos evil demon, leading to more speculation about the celestial court. Form ranks, slay the foe. The voice of the celestial common god roared like thunder, and without hesitation he leapt forward, leading the charge towards the formidable figure. Tens of thousands of heavenly soldiers immediately began to cast spells, forming ranks, as mighty celestial Tao destiny gathered together, creating an oppressive and terrifying momentum that soared higher and higher, as if the majestic might of heaven was awakening. Time flew by, and it had already been 10,000 years since Nzazai returned. Nzazai focused on his cultivation, making rapid progress in his cultivation level, yet the path of immortal cultivation is long. No matter how fast he cultivated within 10,000 years, he could not catch up with other Wuxia disciples. With those 800 years of experience, his Tao heart became more stable, and he no longer desired to venture out for experience. He diligently practiced day and night, which greatly satisfied an Exin. Guwen, however, was somewhat displeased, thinking that Nzazai had become less interesting. He began to look forward to other disciples taking on apprentices. After an Exin took on an apprentice, others indeed began to prepare to take on apprentices. However, with Nzazai's exceptional talent, they had yet to find suitable candidates in the Qingkuan sect or the Nine-Spirit continent, so they had been waiting. The world is vast, with many talents, but for the Nine-Spirit continent, a talent like Nzazai is incredibly rare, one in 10,000 years. Days passed quietly, and Guwen occasionally paid attention to the state of the path of the great Tao. The primordial Tao Emperor's influence was growing, with the number of Tao seekers exceeding 3,000. Although many more desired to become the primordial Tao Emperor, yet many perished on the journey. On the path of the great Tao, some matters related to Zhang Buku also caught Guwen's attention. Shrouded by the destiny of the celestial court, Zhang Buku's actions were difficult to fully foresee, but his extensive activities always left traces, allowing one to follow his trail. The heavenly army to which Zhang Buku belonged was active on the path of the great Tao, conquering in all directions, causing many forces to be apprehensive. One of the followers of the primordial Tao Emperor expressed confusion to others about why the celestial court was so ostentatious, unlike their past conduct. Guwen did not interfere with the actions of the celestial court, as long as they posed no threat to him. On this day, Guwen had just returned to the Taoist field of the beginningless, sitting on a cliff, playing with the wooden plaque formed by the 72 immortals of Jin Dong, his gaze falling on the reincarnation of Tai Immortal Monarch. This live's Tai Immortal Monarch had lived for over 10,000 years, a disciple of one of the 100 sects in the human world, considered to have exceptional talent, currently experiencing his own life. The present Tai Immortal Monarch seemed to have fully integrated into the celestial spirit great world, yet his celestial Tao immortal position would eventually lead him out of this realm. Sar the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Aside from the celestial court coming to seek Tai Immortal Monarch, the reincarnation of the chaos evil demon, Yuan Luo, had also sowed the seeds of disaster in this realm. Guwen pondered on how to face the celestial court. One day, he knew he would have to make a choice, whether to join the celestial court, oppose it, or live a life of hiding everywhere. Just as Guwen contemplated the future, an Xian appeared behind him. "Master, could you personally teach Zizai a piece of great divine power?" An Xian asked after performing a bow to Guwen. The most powerful divine skill she mastered was the Immortal Emperor's Eye, but this divine skill was strictly forbidden by Guwen to be passed on, so she dared not mention it to Zizai. And Zizai's talent and comprehension were both excellent, and his current cultivation achievements were remarkable, excelling in all respects. However, this made him lack his unique skill, making an Xian feel it was a bit unsatisfactory. In the Taoist field of the beginningless, everyone possessed a unique piece of great divine power as their trump card. Guwen responded, "He's not worried himself, so why are you so anxious?" An Xian replied helplessly, "He will eventually seek revenge on the Baidu sect, where strong individuals abound and prodigies are numerous. With his abilities, it's hard to exact revenge. Since he will inevitably face the Baidu sect, why not teach him in advance?" "Is that so?" Guwen said lazily, showing little interest in teaching that boy in Zizai. An Xian squatted beside him, grabbed his arm, and started to act coy, continuously pleading with him, abandoning her usual serious and solemn demeanor. If an Zizai saw this, he would no doubt be stunned. All right. Unable to withstand his beloved apprentice's coquetry, Guwen could only agree. "There's no better time than the present, I'll teach him today." An Xian, delighted, stood up and disappeared from the spot with him. A stick of incense's time later, a refreshed Zizai, clad in clean robes, arrived behind Guwen, respectfully saluting, unable to show the same disrespect to Guwen as in his youth. Only after experiencing certain things did he realize how difficult everything he had now was to obtain. And everything he now possessed was brought to him by the ancestor. Even when his master took him as a disciple, it required the approval of the ancestor. "What divine skill do you want to learn?" Guwen asked as he stood up, turning to face him. The breeze grazed Guwen's black attire, and he still exuded the carefree immortal aura that transcended worldly constraints. On the way, Zizai had already made up his mind, and he answered without hesitation, "I want to learn a divine skill that can bring justice to the world, capable of forcefully suppressing all injustice." Guwen's lips curled slightly, amusedly saying, "Speak so righteously, isn't it just about wanting a sufficiently domineering divine skill?" And Zizai scratched his head in embarrassment after hearing this. Seeing this gesture, Guwen inwardly nodded in satisfaction. This was more like him in the past, not so weary and stagnant. "I recently created a palm technique that may satisfy you," continued Guwen. "You just created it?" And Zizai hesitated slightly, suspecting that the ancestor wanted to use him to test it out. Though he had changed greatly in character, his memory remained, and the ancestor was great in all respects, except that he loved to tease him. Guwen introduced, "This palm technique is named Myriad Supreme Palm, consisting of 7 palms. Mastering the first palm alone is enough to quell all chaos in the world. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 687, As Godly as Stabilizing the World. See Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Myriad Supreme Palm. Zizai muttered the name of this palm technique, having heard Guwen say that the first palm could quell all the chaos of the world, which made him anticipate and feel pleasantly surprised. The name itself sounds powerful. "Please, ancestor, teach me." And Zizai immediately knelt down, speaking with a face full of expectation. Guwen looked at him, smiled, and said, "The Myriad Supreme Palm is a secret skill I created after comprehending the Great Tao. It consists of 7 palms, equivalent to 7 kinds of great divine power. The first palm I will teach you is named World Stabilizing Like a God." And Zizai listened patiently. This was Guwen's first time teaching him, and he wanted to prove his talent, so he was very attentive. Gradually, his mind became immersed. He was entering the Tao. It wasn't that his comprehension was astonishing, but rather Guwen was guiding him with his Tao intent. Since an Exen had spoken, and Nzazai was the first to cultivate the myriad supreme palm, Guan naturally had to teach earnestly. He was bound to ensure Nzazai's myriad supreme palm would become renowned. Unknown how much time had passed. When Nzazai awakened, his eyes became clear, and it was now nighttime. He instinctively looked around and did not find Ancestor's silhouette. He took a deep breath, reminiscing about the insights in his mind, and his spirit trembled. He had never encountered such a powerful secret skill before. He hadn't even mastered it yet, but just recalling the inherited memory, he felt this secret skill was invincible in the world. This was only the first palm. What kind of incredible power would the seventh palm possess? For the first time, he became intensely curious about Ancestor's Tao practice. What kind of cultivation level was needed to create such a secret skill? And Nzazai suddenly wanted to follow Guan by his side to cultivate. Previously, he thought Guan was annoying and would keep his distance, but now, he was curious about everything about Guan. How high is Ancestor's Tao practice? What kind of life has he experienced? Why does Ancestor refuse to appear in the world? So many questions aroused Nzazai's sense of rebirth, even filling him with fighting spirit. Thus, in the days that followed, Nzazai began to stick to Guan. As long as Guan was in the dojo, he would go to Guan's side to cultivate the myriad supreme palm. As time passed, the Wuxia disciples gradually learned that Guan had created a secret skill, but they didn't ask Nzazai about how to cultivate the myriad supreme palm. Without Guan's orders, they didn't dare act rashly. This had been a rule cultivated over hundreds of thousands of years, where disciples would not exchange divine skills, and they had full confidence in their own divine skills. In the void, countless meteors floated silently in the darkness. The blood prison great saint and Fang Xian sat shoulder to shoulder, cultivating together. Fang Xian opened his eyes, exhaled a breath of turbid air, and his eyes became complex. How many lifetimes have you projected? The blood prison great saint's voice came from beside him, with a tone of exhaustion. Fang Xian glanced over, seeing blood prison great saint's expression was somewhat desolate as well. He replied, 27 lifetimes, all were bitter. The blood prison great saint followed with a sigh, 21 lifetimes, I was bitter too. Both fell into silence together. After a while, perhaps experiencing enough failures can prepare one for all future hardships. The strength of the primordial Tao Emperor isn't just about cultivation level and divine skills, but also a robust Tao heart, Fang Xian sighed. He could hardly imagine how many reincarnations the real primordial Tao Emperor had experienced, and what kind of mindset he had when looking at the great Tao at all things. Perhaps they hadn't heard of the primordial Tao Emperor before because he had already transcended, without any desire for fame or gain. The blood prison great saint nodded, saying, the higher my achievement in cultivating this path, the more I revere the primordial Tao Emperor. No wonder my master sent me to cultivate. I feel the primordial Tao Emperor is stronger than the Taoist Emperor. Fang Xian smiled and replied, that's inevitable. The Taoist Emperor relies purely on slaughter and does not cultivate the heart. The two continuously expressed their longing for the primordial Tao Emperor. Even though they had cultivated up to now, they still couldn't see the day when their Tao would be complete, but having each other, they felt more confident and less confused. Just as the two were having an unending exchange, a dazzling light erupted from the depths of the darkness, catching their attention. An overwhelming aura came, causing them to frown. Boom! A Jing Hong shot over swiftly, making the void where the blood prison great saint and Fang Xian resided as bright as day. The two looked up to see a figure above. It was a man cloaked in a black robe with chain armor underneath, standing in the void. His face was grim, eyes like a snake, looking down at the blood prison great saint and Fang Xian with furrowed brows. Blood prison great saint was the first to ask, is there something you need? Although the opponent's aura was powerful, he wasn't fazed at all. At worst, they would fight. It had been many years since he last battled. Fang Xian glanced at blood prison great saint, suddenly feeling this sworn brother was more belligerent than he imagined because he heard the eagerness in the blood prison great saint's tone. Although Fang Xian was considered a genius, he didn't like to fight. To him, immortal cultivation didn't necessarily require combat. fighting was the ultimate last resort. The celestial court is arresting beings who are stepping onto the emperor road. Although you don't have the destiny of the Taoist emperor, the destiny on you too is very special, and you might be targeted by the celestial court. Leave the path of the great Tao soon. The black-robed man looked down at the blood prison great saint and Fang Xian, then turned and left, shattering the void in the blink of an eye and disappearing without a trace. The celestial court? Blood prison great saint frowned. He had heard this name before but didn't know much about it, only that the legendary immortal gods came from the celestial court, which also represented the heavenly Tao. Fang Xian knew more about the celestial court, and his expression turned ugly. He whispered, "Better to believe it exists than not. We should find a place to hide, at least stay away from the main plane of the path of the great Tao." Blood prison great saint glared and said, "So what if it's the celestial court? This is the path of the great Tao. I've never heard of a force that could dominate it single-handedly. If they left, how would he carry out the tasks his master assigned?" Fang Xian wanted to continue persuading when suddenly a vast depression descended, enveloping them both, causing their expressions to change. They instinctively turned to look. From the direction where the black-robed man had appeared, a golden light unfolded rapidly toward them, accompanied by deafening footsteps, as if tens of thousands were marching together. The blood prison great saint immediately took out his Tao treasure, the heaven-breaking blood prison saber. With the Tao treasure out, the suppressive force he encountered immediately weakened. He grabbed the adjacent Fang Xian, who was immobilized by the oppressive force, and turned to flee. "Humph! Where do you think you're going?" The celestial calming god's cold snort came from behind. Before blood prison great saint could turn his head, he suddenly felt an irresistible pull. Even the Tao treasure couldn't completely resist this suction force. Blood prison great saint was greatly horrified and instinctively turned his head, seeing the endless darkness like a giant abyssal mouth engulfing everything, about to swallow him and Fang Xian. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 688, Unfathomable Ancestor Within the Wuxia Dojo at Dusk. Gu Wen was carving a wooden figure in the courtyard, Xinjian was cultivating in front of the artifact refining cauldron, and Zizai was pondering deeply atop the courtyard wall, as the twilight glow cast an aura of tranquility and harmony over the entire courtyard. Suddenly, Gu Wen slightly raised his eyebrows. He sensed that blood prison great saint and Fang Xian had been captured, and the threads of destiny suddenly became blurred. Celestial Court. Only the Celestial Court could make destiny appear this obscure. Fortunately, the blood prison great saint and Fang Xian carried the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor, allowing him to track their whereabouts. Gu Wen began tracing their trail through the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor and saw the plight of blood prison great saint and Fang Xian. Gu Wen suddenly thought of the divine court within the Taiwei Great World. The divine court was also aiding the immortal gods in capturing creatures, tossing them into a furnace, and now the same fate befell blood prison great saint and Fang Xian. Could it be that these immortal gods were preparing for the celestial emperor's struggle? Gu Wen stood up, stretched lazily. He looked at Zizai and suddenly had an idea. No matter what, Zizai, being the eldest disciple among the third-generation disciples of Wuxia, must eventually possess the ability and insight to stand on his own. Currently, Zizai severely lacks insight, even considering the free immortal realm as the highest stage of immortal cultivation. "Zizai, I am planning to go out and have a look. There might be battles involved. Would you like to come and see?" Gu Wen spoke, and as soon as he said this, Zizai turned his head towards him with an expression of interest. Not only him, but even Xinjian looked at Gu Wen, eyes full of curiosity. "Ancestor, I'm afraid I will drag you down," Zizai wanted to go, but recalling his previous experiences of external training made him hesitant. Gu Wen smiled and said, "No worries, you won't need to act. Such an opportunity is rare. Think about it carefully." Hearing this, Zizai fell silent, while Xinjian spoke. "Your ancestor wants to broaden your horizons. You are the first third-generation disciple of Wuxia, and you will surely have many junior brothers and sisters in the future. Do you think you are qualified to be the eldest disciple in your current state? Her words were not pleasant, tinged with a shade of mockery, but they did not anger Enzizai. Enzizai took a deep breath, finding reason in Shenzhen's words. He gave Shenzhen a grateful look, then said to Guan, "Ancestor, I am willing to go with you." Guan immediately waved his sleeve, and Enzizai felt a strong wind rush towards him, instinctively closing his eyes. Then Enzizai could not open his eyes, only feeling himself falling, unable to extend his divine sense, which instinctively made him feel tense. After a while, Enzizai felt his feet touch the ground, and instinctively opened his eyes to see Guan's back. Seeing his ancestor before him, he breathed a sigh of relief. Without speaking, he raised his head to observe the surroundings. He found himself in a dim world, the celestial vault pitch black like a starless night sky. The barren earth and heaps of scorched soil emanated fire sparks and smoldering smoke, gradually making him feel the heat. What is this place? Confusion filled Enzizai's heart, and he could only look towards his ancestor. Guan said, "We are inside a great cauldron, where thousands of beings beyond the 9 heavens of the immortal path are suffering." Beyond the 9 heavens of the immortal path? Thousands? Enzizai's eyes widened, his mouth dropped open in shock, his worldview experiencing a strong impact. In his understanding, the 9th heaven of the immortal path was the highest realm, and he could not envision how powerful those beyond it could be. Yet thousands of such powerful beings were subdued here. Above the free immortal realm is the Tao fruit realm, segmented into Taoist Zhongzizai immortal, profound Yuan free immortal, and heaven-encompassing free immortal. Beyond that lies the golden immortal Tao fruit, segmented into innate golden immortal, heaven-balancing golden immortal, and Taiching golden immortal. Guan gazed into the distance, softly introducing, leaving Enzizai even more astounded. There are so many realms above the free immortal? See Tachnalf Iyer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. What realm was the ancestor in? His intuition told him the ancestor might very well be a Taiching golden immortal. How else could he know so much? Enzizai nervously asked, "Ancestor, who is the enemy and where are they?" Guan did not hide it. The owner of this cauldron is an immortal god from the celestial court. We came here because my steed was captured here. Is it Uncle Master Blood Prison? Enzizai's eyes lit up as he asked. Though the Blood Prison Great Saint was a steed, he was regarded as a disciple within Wuxia, and Enzizai had heard his name since childhood. Among the disciples of Wuxia, Blood Prison Great Saint was the second only to his master, with immense capability. Yes, it is him. Guan answered, having already sensed the presence of Blood Prison Great Saint and Fang Xian within the cauldron. They were trying to escape the cauldron, but no matter how they exerted their divine skills, they could not break free. The other trapped individuals within the cauldron had long given up hope, opting only to meditate to resist the cauldron's flames as best as they could. Are we going to rescue him now? Enzizai asked excitedly. He was excited for 2 reasons, meeting the Blood Prison Great Saint and encountering the immortal gods and realms beyond the free immortal. He felt a thrill reminiscent of his early days of training away from the 9-spirit continent. No rush. Guan turned to walk, and Enzizai quickly followed. He glanced around, feeling very nervous, unsure of where the enemy lay. This world is so vast. Is it really a cauldron? Enzizai was secretly astonished, unable to imagine the strength and features of the celestial court immortal god who wielded such a great cauldron. As they advanced, Enzizai saw bones upon bones, human remains and demon remains shocking to the eye, the stances of some of the skeletons making his scalp tingle. He could imagine how desperate they must have been while alive. "Ancestor, how did you bring me in?" Enzizai refocused his gaze on Guan, cautiously asking. Invading even the treasure of an immortal god seemed effortless. Enzizai truly sensed his ancestor's profound abilities, heightening his anticipation for the impending battle. "Just stepped in." Guan answered casually. This offhand remark further increased Enzizai's admiration for him. "Ancestor, will you fight the immortal gods? In this place, it might be worth testing their edge." "What is this place?" Where is this great cauldron located? Is it still within our world? This is the path of the great Tao, incredibly far from the celestial spirit great world, so distant that with your current cultivation level, you will never be able to come here in your lifetime. Gu's answer left Zizai wide-eyed again, memorizing the name of this place, determined to journey here if possible in the future. Ancestor, if a battle does start, will you use the myriad supreme palm? Zizai blinked, expectantly asking. Gu gently nodded. He did not look back, but this gesture was enough to make Zizai feel thrilled. Having cultivated the myriad supreme palm for so many years, he had not truly witnessed the power of this secret skill. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 689, Demon God's Physical Body Under the Dark Celestial Vault. The Blood Prison Great Saint landing beside Feng Xian, both of their expressions grim. No, we can't escape at all. The Blood Prison Great Saint gritted his teeth, clenching his fists, his eyes filled with rage. Having cultivated on the path of the Great Tao for so many years, to be effortlessly trapped in this realm made him feel deeply humiliated. Don't act rashly, let's meditate and observe this realm first. Feng Xian pulled the Blood Prison Great Saint to sit down, cautiously watching their surroundings. The floating scorched smoke and sparks reminded him of a terrible event that had occurred here, and it was likely to happen again. The Blood Prison Great Saint took a deep breath, struggling to calm his emotions. He then dispersed his divine sense, trying to investigate the situation here. He quickly saw figures of other captives but could not see the figures of Guan or Zizai. So many people were caught, and many have a higher cultivation level than us. Feng Xian murmured, his tone full of unease. Xuanji Emperor. He's also here, reportedly one of the best chances of becoming a Taoist emperor among the current prodigies. Feng Xian's face changed dramatically. After saying this, his face looked ashen. The Blood Prison Great Saint felt increasingly anxious. Why had the immortal gods captured so many people? Meanwhile, Zizai followed Guan all the way. He noticed that although his pace hadn't accelerated, the surrounding environment shifted significantly. This was a very peculiar experience. Although he advanced quickly, it was hard to notice unless he observed carefully. It must be the ancestors' doing. Zizai looked at Guan with growing admiration. As a child, he didn't understand why his master always obeyed the ancestor without question and wouldn't ask a single question regarding his commands, nor why other disciples feared the ancestor so much. Though seemingly carefree, the ancestor actually possessed great divine power capable of extraordinary feats, but he usually didn't show off. Zizai silently vowed that he too wanted to become a person like the ancestor. True strength should be displayed at critical moments, not flaunted in daily life. We've arrived. Gu's voice suddenly rang, pulling Zizai's thoughts back to reality. In that instant, he had the illusion that heaven and earth trembled. His gaze was drawn forward, his eyes slowly widened, pupils filled with astonishment. Following his gaze, there was a giant egg standing on the ground ahead, as massive as a mountain, towering 1,000 zhang high. The surface of the giant egg was like flesh and skin with veins, glowing red inside, faintly revealing a giant curled up within. Guan looked up at the giant egg and used lifespan detection, but received no feedback. So, it's not for alchemy but for forging a body? Without a soul, could it be for possession? Guan speculated secretly, sensing that the flesh inside the giant egg was already no less than the heaven-encompassing free immortal realm. This body lacked celestial Tao destiny, yet exuded a terrifying aura, one that the heaven-encompassing free immortal should not have. Guan carefully deduced, finding this aura to be linked to some great Tao, and that this body had countless ties to the 3,000 great Tao. Delving deeper into his deductions, he saw a darkness, a cosmic plane beyond the 3,000 great worlds, oppressively bleak, with nothing visible. Though not much useful information was gained, he could confirm that the purpose of the Great Cauldron capturing so many living beings was to refine their flesh and merge it into this body. Ancestor, what is that? Zizai couldn't help but ask. Just looking at the body within the giant egg made him shudder and gave birth to a strong urge to flee. Perhaps it's a demon god. Guwen answered, his gaze fixed on the giant egg ahead. And Zizai wanted to ask more questions when suddenly the ground trembled and frightening earth fire erupted. He instinctively flew upward, his eyes glancing at the ground. Guwen still stood in place, the blazing flames around him causing no harm, his robe untouched by the fire, as if the surrounding inferno were an illusion. The speed of the earth fire's ascent was so fast that Zizai had to keep flying upwards. In the distance, silhouettes of other living beings also rose, with strong auras bursting from different directions, and Zizai could sense anxiety in those auras. Ancestor. And Zizai looked at Guwen, calling softly, terror of the flames driving him to seek reliance on Guwen, and suddenly waved his sleeve, taking the giant egg into his sleeve. He then took a step, a fierce wind erupting from around him, spreading instantly, dispersing the flames along the way. In the distance, the Blood Prison Great Saint and Fang Xian still sat on the ground, using their mana to resist the surrounding blazing flames. Fang Xian frowned and was about to speak when a strong wind came from the horizon, blowing away the sea of fire around them, making them turn their heads to look. What's going on? The Blood Prison Great Saint muttered, tensing up, his right hand gripping the heaven-breaking Blood Prison saber beside him. Fang Xian didn't answer the Blood Prison Great Saint. He was probing the situation in that direction with his divine sense. Unfortunately, unable to see Guwen, he couldn't find the source. Above the Qi Sea of the Great Tao, golden light extended infinitely, hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers walked upon it, swaying unstoppably. At the front, the celestial calming god held a saber in one hand and a black cauldron in the other. In his grasp, the black cauldron appeared tiny, its surface engraved with fierce beast images, lifelike and eerie to the point of fear. Suddenly, Xianxia the novel, the NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The celestial calming god stopped, frowning as he glanced at the black cauldron in his hand. When he stopped, the hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers halted with him. Zhang Buku, standing amidst the crowd, gazed at the stance of the celestial calming god, curiously asking, "What's happening?" Beside him, Su Yu squinted and answered, "The soul refining cauldron seems to have a problem." Soul refining cauldron? Zhang Buku was even more curious. He felt a sense of awe and dread towards the soul refining cauldron, recalling scenes of it suppressing numerous prodigies. Even he, as a celestial god, felt intimidated. This cauldron was so ominous, full of evil. Boom! A pillar of fire suddenly rose in front of the celestial calming god, soaring into the sky, grandly towering, making even the mighty celestial calming god appear small before it. Within the fire pillar, the massive soul-refining cauldron slowly rose, becoming countless times larger than before. Who dares meddle with an immortal artifact? The celestial calming god's voice echoed, solemnly oppressive, like thunder echoing endlessly. All the heavenly soldiers were on guard, ready to form a formation at any moment. The soul-refining cauldron halted, suspended in the void, the surrounding fire pillar dissipating soon, quickly restoring calmness. The heavenly soldiers looked around, finding no enemy figures, forcing them to turn their gaze to the soul-refining cauldron. The top cover of the soul-refining cauldron did not tremble, standing as firm as Mount Tai, giving a sense of unshakable gravity. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 690. Flip of the hand. As hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers fixed their gaze on the lid of the soul-refining cauldron. Inside the cauldron, the endless sea of fire had already dissipated. One by one, figures soared into the air, hovering, and looked around, eager to grasp the situation. Who extinguished the cauldron fire? Some of these captives had already experienced the burning flames and knew the terror it wrought. That gust of wind just now was definitely no coincidence. There is a mysterious figure extinguishing the fire. And Zizai looked at Guwen, his eyes filled with anticipation. What kind of epic battle will unfold next? Under Zizai's watchful eyes, Guwen turned, facing a direction, and slowly raised his right hand. It has begun. And Zizai felt a surge of excitement, his eyes filled with expectation. As Guwen lifted his palm, a terrifying aura erupted. This time, he deliberately weakened the barriers of cause and effect and aura, allowing all creatures within the cauldron to see him, but unable to see him clearly. The Blood Prison Great Saint and Fang Xian also turned their heads, their gazes locked on Guwen. They could only see a blurry figure, unable to discern Guwen's true appearance. The Blood Prison Great Saint's expression was invigorated, his breathing becoming rapid. Though unclear, he instantly guessed it was Guwen. Back then, when Guwen stood against the battle court, his figure was just as unseeable, but his presence was felt. He just got caught, and his master has arrived. Who is that, daring to? Fang Xian furrowed his brow and muttered to himself. Suddenly, as if realizing something, his eyes widened and shifted to the excited, trembling Blood Prison Great Saint beside him, causing his own heart to quiver. That existence has indeed come. On another side of the world within the cauldron, dozens of creatures hovered in the air, headed by a man clad in dark red battle armor. His figure was robust, long hair coiled beneath the majestic headpiece of a divine beast, with a stern face exuding immense pressure. This was the Xuanji Emperor, whose cultivation had reached the heaven-encompassing free immortal realm. He was the existence with the greatest hope of becoming a Taoist emperor on the current path of the Great Tao. The Xuanji Emperor also couldn't see Guwen's true self, but this person gave him the same feeling as his clan's ancestor, profound and unfathomable. He had an intuition that this person might lead them out. Under the watchful eyes of thousands of prodigies and great cultivators, Guwen gently pushed forward with his right palm. The action seemed casual, like picking flowers and grass. But as Guwen's arms straightened, a terrifying force suddenly erupted, shattering the darkness of the celestial vault in front of him. A whirlwind mixed with burnt smoke roared forth, like a pack of dragons vying to be the first to rush out, creating a grand spectacle. Thousands of captives caught in the whirlwind were all stunned by this palm of Guwen. They could feel the terrifying, irresistible force. Ever since they fell into this realm, they had tried to break out, all in vain. Their strongest divine skills didn't create the slightest damage. Cloaks flapping and hair swirling, all captives gazed at the broken hole in the horizon where inside shone a dazzling white light, resembling an entrance to a new world. Above the Qi Sea along the Great Tao, hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers watched as a huge hole was blasted through the soul-refining cauldron. The oppressive heat wave surged out, unstoppable, and the majority of heavenly soldiers showed a look of disbelief. Such an immortal artifact was actually pierced through? And from the inside. The celestial calming god's face was equally grim as he leapt into the air, arriving at the hole in the soul-refining cauldron, using his physical body to withstand the wind and waves. He raised his mighty sword high, while hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers began to form ranks. Zhang Buku and Su Yu both directed their mana while looking at the soul-refining cauldron, their gaze concentrated on that hole, curious about what kind of powerful being had broken through the cauldron. They instinctively thought of the Xuanji Emperor, whose performance had impressed them when the celestial calming god captured him. Under the scrutinizing eyes of all the heavenly soldiers, the blinding light inside the hole of the soul-refining cauldron continued to shine as a figure slowly emerged, seeming like a speck of dust compared to the gaping hole but exerting extreme pressure on the heavenly soldiers. Guwen slowly walked out of the white light, followed by Zizai. Neither the celestial calming god nor the hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers could see their true forms, only perceiving two vague silhouettes, which made the celestial calming god even more wary of Guwen. "Who are you?" The celestial calming god questioned sternly. He was sure he had never captured these two before, meaning they had sneaked into the soul-refining cauldron without a trace. Their cultivation level was likely above his. This is the path of the Great Tao, and any being daring to oppose the celestial court might intend to kill them. Especially since they hid their true forms, it was clear they harbored ill intent. He could die and be resurrected through the celestial court's destiny, but his hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers couldn't since they hadn't truly been inducted into the immortal class. After putting in so much time and effort, he didn't want his soldiers to fall here. Guwen did not respond to the celestial calming god. His gaze swept over the hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers and spotted Zhang Buku. He looked at Su Yu beside Zhang Buku. He had previously calculated that a Daluo being backed Su Yu. Now, looking at Su Yu up close, he could see more of the cause and effect. The Daluo existence behind Su Yu had intricate ties with the celestial court, but wasn't completely shrouded by its destiny. Could it be he wants to break away from the celestial court? As Guwen pondered, hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers flew upwards, encircling the soul-refining cauldron, quickly forming ranks, like a giant golden bell's silhouette enveloping the void. Within the silhouette, countless golden dragons and fire phoenixes coiled, exuding immense pressure, with dragon roars and phoenix calls resonating endlessly. From behind Guwen, figures flew out of the white light, all the captives emerging. After the blood prison great saint flew out, he gazed at Guwen from afar with an excited look, but he restrained the urge to acknowledge him. The master had not revealed his true form, so he couldn't spoil things. He began to anticipate how his master would confront the heavenly court immortals. The Xuanji Emperor, Fang Xian, and other captives saw the celestial court's formation complete and dared not act rashly, all their attention focused on Guwen, pinning their hopes on this mysterious great power. Sir the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The celestial calming god lifted his sword, pointing it at Guwen, as his Dharma aspect rose, radiating majesty like an ancient war god standing up, dwarfing even the soul-refining cauldron. If you refuse to speak, you're an enemy. The celestial calming god shouted solemnly, thoughts rushing through his mind, but with so many enemies over the long years, he couldn't promptly identify who it was. Yet he didn't waste time in idle chatter. During the questioning, he was already mobilizing the celestial army's destiny of the celestial court, focusing it on himself. He was already at the cultivation level of a heaven-balancing golden immortal, and his momentum was escalating crazily. Guwen saw through the celestial calming god's little tricks but didn't mind. And Zizai looked at the figure of the celestial calming god and the grand formation of hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers. This was the first time he had encountered such an imposing scene in all his years. Watch closely, this is the first strike of the myriad supreme palm. Guwen's voice suddenly resonated in Zizai's ears, causing his eyes to widen. And Zizai fixed his gaze on Guwen, watching him raise his right hand once more. This time, Guwen didn't push forward but instead flipped his right hand upwards and then pressed it downwards. Not just in Zizai, almost everyone had their eyes glued to Guwen. Seeing his movement, no one dared breathe. As Guwen's palm pressed downward, an immense, boundless pressure descended from the sky, enveloping everyone, shocking them as they looked up. Hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers raised their heads uniformly, the scene utterly spectacular. They too widened their eyes in disbelief. The always composed and profound Su Yu's expression also drastically changed, exclaiming in shock, "How can this be?" If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 691. Su Yu's voice was drowned out by the roar within the void, and Zhang Buku beside him also widened his eyes, with specks of golden light appearing rapidly in his eyes, quickly connecting into a continuum. Hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers looked up, all with expressions of utter astonishment. Celestial calming god looked up and was similarly shocked. He immediately roared in anger, raised his sword, and slashed upwards. His mana, nearly at the limit of the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm, suddenly erupted, soaring skyward. The golden bell phantom formed by hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers trembled violently, and those golden dragons and fire phoenixes, as if encountering a natural enemy, ceased altogether, roaring towards the sky. The thousands of other trapped people behind Guwen also looked up, all staring in stupefaction, the golden light illuminating their shocked expressions. Golden ethereal palms of varying sizes descended from the sky, endless and inexhaustible, all shining with piercing golden light, occupying the entire sky above the void, as if another plane was descending, full of oppression. No matter which direction one looked, there were massive golden palm silhouettes as large as mountains, some even larger than heaven and earth, with an unimaginable oppressive force that made it impossible for them to escape the range of the celestial army's formation. Even the Xuanji Emperor of the heaven-encompassing free immortals could not count how many golden ethereal palms there were. In the face of such divine skills, the heavenly court immortals were like mere mortals, insignificant and fragile. And Zizai opened his mouth wide, staring blankly at the relentless descent of the golden ethereal palms, his mind blank as he gazed at the spectacle. Time seemed to slow down, and everyone except the celestial calming god had no time to react. The celestial calming god wielded his sword to cut, and in the process of ascending, the vast mana transformed into a crimson qilin, surrounded by heavenly thunder. It was even larger than the soul-refining cauldron, but under the endless palm silhouettes of the god-calming realm, it was like a mosquito caught in a storm, ready to be overwhelmed at any moment. The descent of the god-calming realm was extremely fast, from appearance to arrival in less than half a heartbeat. Countless golden ethereal palms smashed onto the golden bell phantom, and the dazzling golden light made the entire void lose its color. Zhang Buku looked up with wide eyes. He instinctively wanted to use his divine skills, but his actions weren't quick enough, and ultimately, his entire body was engulfed by the golden light. Boom, 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 as the cosmic void lost its color, deafening roaring sounds erupted continuously, and Zizai also closed his eyes, unable to see, and the incoming sounds made him feel as if the entire Dao universe was shaking, his chi blood freezing, causing extreme discomfort. Standing behind Guan, he felt this way, let alone the others. Blood Prison Great Saint felt both uncomfortable and excited, even though he couldn't see. The vast spectacle of the god-calming realm echoed in his mind. Such divine skills, he wanted to learn them too. Once he returned, he would pester his master to teach him this divine skill. Xuanji Emperor also found himself unable to perform magic, but he sensed a special fate not only due to pure and powerful cultivation but also a special fate supporting it. This fate was similar to the Taoist emperors, comparable to the Great Tao, yet independent of the Great Tao. This astonished the Xuanji Emperor greatly. Is there a kind of Great Tao destiny on the path of the Great Tao stronger than the Taoist Emperor? He had no time to ponder more, quickly realizing his consciousness was being dragged into slumber. And Zizai had a dream, dreaming of ancestors slaughtering indiscriminately among the heavenly soldiers and generals, no immortal or god able to withstand a single blow, a completely one-sided massacre. Suddenly, Ancestor approached him, frightening him into abruptly waking up, opening his eyes wide and sitting up, gasping for air. The morning sunlight pierced through the mountains and rivers of the earth, shining on him, giving him a feeling as if a lifetime had passed. He instinctively turned his head and found himself in Ancestor's courtyard. Shen Zhen and an Exen were sitting in front of the artifact refining cauldron, conversing in low voices, with no sign of anyone else. He couldn't help but ask, "Master, Uncle Shen, where's the ancestor?" "Your ancestor went out to play, estimated to be back by evening." An Exian replied calmly. It was Shen Zhen who turned his head to look at him, curious. "How was it? Did you witness your ancestor's hand?" And Zizai took a deep breath, nodded heavily, recalling the memories in his mind. He couldn't help but clench his fists, his eyes shining. He replied, "Ancestor used the divine skills he taught me, so strong, there must be at least 100,000 heavenly court immortals. Not one could withstand a single palm from him." An Exen also became interested, turning to listen to him describe the previous battle. At the same time, Guan was staying in the mountain god temple of Tai Tsong continent. After picking the ripe medicinal herbs, he came into the courtyard, then silently activated the life span barrier, taking out the demon god body he had taken from the soul-refining cauldron, still within an egg. He did not kill the celestial calming god and the hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers. The celestial calming god couldn't be killed, and those heavenly soldiers were innocent, simply following orders. If they were all killed, the karma involved would cover the 3,000 great worlds and various mysterious universes, let alone Zhang Buku, who was also among them. Of course, aside from intimidating the celestial calming god, this battle also showcased the power of the primordial Tao Emperor to those thousands of trapped people and hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers. These trapped people and heavenly soldiers were all great powers and gifted prodigies. They would certainly perceive the fate of the primordial Tao Emperor, and they could spread the primordial Tao Emperor across their respective universes. At this moment, Guwen was more concerned with the demon god body that the celestial calming god had refined. He observed carefully and found that this demon god body had a high tolerance for the 3,000 great Daos, meaning it could cultivate various great Daos with ease. For whom was the celestial calming god preparing this body? This body had no heavenly court destiny, so Guwen realized that there were hundreds of such bodies within the 3,000 great worlds, and one was hidden within the divine court of Taiwei Great World. Sia the Novel Fire. NE*T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. So many demon god bodies, and they are all being refined by immortals and gods, must be related to the struggle with the celestial emperor. Do they need so many demon gods to overthrow the current celestial emperor's rule? Guwen was very curious about how strong the celestial emperor really was today. What was his concept of the heavenly Tao? Perhaps the disregard of the immortal gods for all living beings is related to the battle for the celestial emperor. Guwen looked at the demon god body, silently thinking. Profound mysterious Shinran sat beside him, curiously looking at the giant egg in front of Guwen. Even though the egg had shrunk a lot, the figure curled up inside still appeared large. Staring at the figure inside the giant egg, profound mysterious Shinran felt very uneasy, feeling that this body was terrifying, making him afraid to disturb Guwen. For a long time, Guwen glanced at profound mysterious Shinran and smiled. I shall grant this body to you, to aid in your possession. Do you agree? Upon hearing this, profound mysterious Shinran's face changed greatly, not immediately agreeing or refusing, but cautiously asked, what is the origin of this body? This body was refined by the immortal gods, true immortal gods. If you possess it, you will have talent surpassing all creation, but you will also bear unforeseen karma, which might drag you into immense trouble in the future. Guwen explained, making profound mysterious Shinran even more nervous. True immortal gods? The reason profound mysterious Shinran follows Guwen is because he devoutly believes in immortal gods. Now hearing of true immortal gods from Guwen, his heartbeat quickened. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 692. The Supreme Celestial Emperor, How do you wish me to choose? After much thought, profound mysterious Shinran decided to inquire about Guwen's attitude. He owed his current achievements entirely to Guwen's support, and he believed Guwen would not harm him. Even if he was merely a pawn for Guwen, he would willingly accept it. Guwen replied, naturally, I hope you can accept it, and perhaps in the future, you could use this body to enter the immortal class. Profound mysterious Shinran narrowed his eyes and asked, do you want me to infiltrate the celestial court? So clever. Guwen spoke earnestly, immortal gods exist, but they disregard all living beings. Some even commit evil deeds in the human world. I think there might be issues within the celestial court that creates immortal gods. The reason he chose to give the demon god body to profound mysterious Shinran was twofold, to genuinely help him change his fate, and because profound mysterious Shinran yearned for immortal gods, thus he could send him to the celestial court as a spy. The destiny of the celestial court is complex and cannot be predicted, but if a spy is planted, they can still investigate the internal situation of the celestial court. After hearing this, profound mysterious Shinran thought it made sense. The current immortal gods were indeed strange. They were not seen saving the world. Instead, many catastrophes arose because of them. Then I am willing to possess this body, thank you for your grace. Sar the Novel, F.I.R. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Profound mysterious Shinran immediately knelt down and kowtowed to Guwen. If it weren't for Guwen's care, he wouldn't have lived this long. Even though he was already hundreds of thousands of years old, his path of cultivation was still hopeful, all thanks to Guan. Moreover, he believed Guan was greatly virtuous. Without Guan, the world he resided in would have been destroyed several times already. No matter the underlying reasons, born in the celestial spirit great world, he should take its side. Whoever protected it was the true immortal God in his heart. Guan, looking at profound mysterious Jinren kneeling in front of him, couldn't help but think back to 56,000 years ago, when profound mysterious Jinren had also knelt to him like this. He wondered whether this arrangement was a blessing or a curse for profound mysterious Jinren. Guan did not hesitate. He had already explained the pros and cons and his intentions to profound mysterious Jinren, which was also what the latter sought. He believed that profound mysterious Jinren was not compelled by his power. Profound mysterious Jinren surely knew that even if he refused Guan would not trouble him. Then let's begin. On a desolate meteor on the path of the great Tao, Zhang Buku opened his eyes, quickly stood up and looked around. He found himself surrounded by heavenly soldiers. Suyu stood by his side, frowning as he looked into the distance. Zhang Buku couldn't help but ask, "Did that person leave?" Suyu nodded and said, "The other party didn't harm us. They probably left to save someone." Following his gaze at the horizon, the celestial calming god was meditating on a cliff, with his back to hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers. "What's wrong with him?" Zhang Buku whispered, also staring at the celestial calming god. Suyu replied, "He might be transmitting information." He took a deep breath, turned to Zhang Buku and asked, "Did you feel anything during the previous great battle?" Hearing this, Zhang Buku began to recall carefully, thinking of the terrifying scene that seemed to suppress the world, and he still felt fear. After a while, Zhang Buku hesitantly said, "That person had a kind of destiny similar to the Taoist emperor, but different from it." The great Tao destiny was no secret to him. He currently had access only to the celestial Tao destiny and Taoist emperor. Whether becoming a celestial Tao immortal god or a Taoist emperor, one would possess unparalleled divine power in the same realm. Now there was a new type. Guan's great Tao destiny made him feel an extremely fierce aura that directly confronted the soul and Tao heart. Indeed, it's another kind of great Tao destiny. "The heavens are about to change," Suyu said softly, his words full of complexity. Zhang Buku asked in confusion, "Change?" A long time ago, when the Taoist emperor was born, it once triggered a catastrophe that swept through the 3,000 great worlds and all the heavens, even affecting the celestial court. Although the celestial court disdained the Taoist emperor, once there were many Taoist emperors, they attempted to overthrow the celestial court's rule. If this great Tao destiny also flourishes, it will inevitably challenge the divine might of the celestial court. Su Yu's voice was filled with emotion. "Do you mean the celestial court will hunt down this kind of destiny?" "No, the celestial court is arrogant. They disdain all existence, especially the supreme celestial emperor. He can allow all forces to grow. The conflicts between the celestial court and all the heavens are basically about offending a certain immortal god, rather than the will of the entire celestial court." Mentioning the celestial emperor, Su Yu's eyes shone with a light Zhang Buku had never seen before. Zhang Buku could feel Su Yu's immense reverence for the celestial emperor, sparking unlimited curiosity about him. What kind of being is the celestial emperor? Meanwhile, in another plane on the path of the great Tao, Blood Prison Great Saint and Fang Xian were blocked by a group of people. "Do you also wish to pursue the primordial Tao emperor?" Blood Prison Great Saint asked with a raised eyebrow. The primordial Tao emperor had already taken root and flourished on the path of the great Tao. Blood Prison Great Saint didn't think this was a secret, nor did he know that the primordial Tao emperor was something Guan had pioneered. After the previous great battle, he assumed that Guan was also the primordial Tao emperor. It made sense. If Guan wasn't the primordial Tao emperor, why would he let them cultivate as the primordial Tao emperor? As for Guan sending him to gather information, he understood it. Even though he had begun reincarnation projection, his understanding of the primordial Tao emperor was still insufficient. Not to mention the primordial Tao emperor, Those Taoist emperors who achieved their own great Tao destiny probably didn't know enough about it. Xuanji Emperor nodded and said, "Indeed, that fiercely powerful great Tao destiny suits me more." Having witnessed Gu and his power, he was enthralled by such a powerful and domineering aura. Even though he was already close to becoming a Taoist emperor, he decided resolutely to abandon it. In his eyes, the Taoist emperor was just a form of power, not his lifelong pursuit. Now, with the emergence of a stronger and more alluring power, how could he hesitate? The people following Xuanji Emperor had similar thoughts. They were very curious about the primordial Tao Emperor. To tread the primordial Emperor road, you must find the primordial crystal. It will guide you into the path. Blood Prison Great Saint began introducing the primordial crystal. A proud talent behind Xuanji Emperor had a slight change in expression because he had encountered a primordial crystal before but hadn't paid much attention to it, thus secretly blaming himself for being blind. After chatting for a while, Xuanji Emperor finally thanked them and left. Blood Prison Great Saint and Fang Xian both received heavenly materials and earthly treasures from him, which made them feel favorable toward him. This person was different from other proud talents on the Emperor Road. He was not that arrogant and acted considerately. Watching them leave, Fang Xian smiled and sighed, "My path is not lonely. I truly look forward to the day when the primordial Tao Emperor overshadows the Taoist Emperor." Blood Prison Great Saint laughed, "That day will surely come. The Taoist Emperor's path of proving the Tao, like raising venomous creatures, goes against the natural Taoist technique and will ultimately be eliminated. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 693, 50,000 Years in the Human World. Attacking the celestial calming god's celestial army didn't bring any trouble to Guan. With his help, profound mysterious Jinren successfully possessed the demon god body, but needed time to adapt. Life returned to tranquility once again. Having witnessed the might that could calm the world like a god, and Zizai became thoroughly exhilarated and focused all his efforts on cultivation, more diligently than anyone else. Time flies like a fleeting horse, never to return. 500,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. The human world welcomed an unprecedented golden age, with the 100 sects establishing branches beyond the heavens, exploring the void and the silent extinction domain. The number of free immortals doubled, and most free immortals were born after the reshaping of heaven and earth, all possessing excellent talents. In the Taoist field of the beginningless, the highest cultivation level among the second-generation disciples reached the Zizai Immortal realm, able to hold their own, while the lowest were divine thought true immortals. 4 more third-generation disciples had joined, ranked by seniority. They were Lu Zidao, the disciple of celestial demon child; Zhou Yu, the disciple of Xianxia; Jiang Lan, the second disciple of an Exan; and Shangguan Xiener, the disciple of celestial Xian. The weakest, Shangguan Xiener, had also reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. The eldest of the third-generation disciples, and Zizai, had reached the cultivation level of Tao Void Profound Immortal. All these third-generation disciples chose to remain at the Taoist field of the beginningless to cultivate, though they did not receive personal instruction from Guan. On this day at noon, Guan lay resting under a tree, checking his attribute panel. Name: Guan, Sir the Novelier. T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Lifespan: 1067, 509/76, 680, 956, 221, 303. Physique: primordial Tao creation body. Cultivation level: perfect Taoist Great Luo Immortal realm. He was already an ancient being over 1,000,000 years old, with a lifespan reaching 76 trillion years. Every time he saw his age, Guan would sigh with emotion. Truly, time spares no one. Looking back, his greatest sense of achievement was not his own cultivation level, but that the people he cared about were all living well. Li Ya, Martial Resolution, and Yang Jian were all free immortals. Though not the top cultivations in the human world, they were considered first-rate and held considerable influence wherever they went. Even the 100 sects in the human world treated them well. Other old friends like Jiang Qiong, Li Xiandao, and Profound Celestial Intent were all doing well, even those like Lu Lingjun, Gu Yu, Zhuo Lin, and Yu Inying, with whom he had lost contact, had received his secret assistance and were living their own brilliant lives. Some people, though drifting further apart, did not leave Guan feeling regretful. He continued to keep an eye on them, considering it a small pleasure in his otherwise calm life. "Ancestor, look at the book I wrote." A melodious female voice came from the side. A woman, dressed in a white skirt and as beautiful as a celestial being, floated over like a startling swan, quickly landing beside him. It was Xianxia, the disciple of Celestial Xian. She was the third-generation disciple closest to Guan, not because she was the only female disciple, but because she shared the same hobby as Guan. Her interest was inspired by Shenzhen. Whenever Xianxia came to find Guan, he would internally sigh. That wretched Shenzhen, what has he turned his obedient disciple granddaughter into? And Celestial Xian, who lost interest in a disciple in under 1,000 years and completely ignored it. Xianxia crouched down, handing the book in her hands to Guan, her delicate face full of anticipation. Guan glanced at an Exan meditating not far away, then tucked Xianxia's book into his arms, gave a slight cough, and said, "I'll read it later, you can leave now, don't disturb your senior brother's cultivation." Xianxia turned her head to look at an Exan. She held a deep reverence for an Exan. In the entire Taoist field of the beginningless, she feared an Exan the most. Seeing an Exan still meditating, Xianxia turned back, looked at Guan, and said mysteriously, "Ancestor, Chenkuan's sect is going to war with the Dao court because of Yuan Luo. The information is very reliable." Yuan Luo and Zhao Rushan had a long-standing feud from their early years. Both were once the first geniuses of their respective sects and now held great power, which gave them even more confidence. Conflicts arose with each encounter. "What's it to you?" Guan said casually. In fact, he had already foreseen the final outcome of this conflict. Before Yuan Luo's birth, Emperor Tianhong would kill Zhao Rushan, causing the decline of the Dao court until it disappeared from history. Now that Yuan Luo replaced Emperor Tianhong, a war between Chenkuan's sect and the Dao court was inevitable. Not just Chenkuan's sect, the 100 sects in the human world would also besiege the Dao court, aiming to overturn the world order of the past million years. Many other sects' great cultivators had already secretly colluded with Yuan Luo. The 20 geniuses from the undefeated Emperor clan had also risen. They came from the Emperor clan, inherently belligerent, and had long wished to overthrow the Dao court. Now they were on good terms with Yuan Luo, serving as his support. Even without these 20 geniuses, the Dao court would ultimately fall. It was a destined fate, as no power could remain prosperous forever in the human world, so Guan didn't stop the geniuses from the undefeated Emperor clan. Not only had he introduced variables to the human world, but over these 500,000 years, there were also more than 1,000 beings with great divine skills from other great thousand worlds. The celestial spirit god did not intervene, for the celestial spirit great world also had many who ventured through the world gate. The variables increased, and the profound Yuan free immortals and Taoist Zhang Zizai immortals of the human world could no longer foresee the future, causing unrest within the Dao court. Yet the fate of the celestial spirit great world remained visible to Gu, and whenever changes occurred, new destinies appeared in his vision. If he focused, he could even see the destiny branches created by these variables in advance. That's the Dao court, the strongest sect under the heavens. No, it's the strongest even beyond the heavens. Once Chenkuan's sect goes to war with them, could it affect our Taoist field of the beginningless? Xianxia's voice was filled with excitement and anticipation as she spoke. Among the third-generation disciples, aside from Zizai, the others only knew Guan was strong, but how strong exactly, they were unsure. Moreover, the second-generation disciples intentionally didn't reveal that Guan was invincible to prevent them from becoming too arrogant. Guan stood up, listlessly saying, "Maybe. You better seize the time to cultivate. With your cultivation, you're merely cannon fodder against the Dao court." He touched his chest, curious about the book Xianxia had written. Deliberately, he didn't simulate it beforehand, letting this book remain a mystery. Objectively speaking, Xianxia's characterization of people and depiction of environments was indeed top-notch, though she lacked the creativity of Shenzhen. Xianxia huffed, "I've already preliminarily mastered the 3,000 slaying Dao swords. I may not lack the strength to fight." "Oh please, with your swordsmanship, you call that the 3,000 slaying Dao swords? Ancestor, you're going too far. Not just your 3,000 slaying Dao swords, even your master's doesn't qualify. Your comprehension in sword Dao is too poor." Guan deliberately teased Xianxia, inciting her face to redden with anger. Unlike how he encouraged the second-generation disciples, Guan relished discouraging the third-generation ones. He just liked seeing his disciple grandkids getting rattled. He knew he was quite vile for doing so, but seeing his grand disciples, he just couldn't help but crack jokes. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 694. After a heated exchange with Guan, Xianxia left with a frustrated heart. "Master, is there divine scheming behind the conflict between the Dao court and the 100 sects of the human world?" And Xin's voice came through, as she opened her eyes, gazing at Guan from afar. Guan turned his head to look at her and asked with a smile, "What is it? Are you worried about the Qianquan sect?" And Xin shook her head and replied, "It doesn't matter who wins or loses, it's natural selection, destined by fate. I'm just worried that there's some interference from outer heaven. If that's the case, wouldn't it be a great pity for the sects of the human world? No matter who wins or loses, the internal strife in the celestial spirit great world can't affect much, as a new order will always arise. But the variables brought by the immortal gods are different, potentially overwhelming the entire celestial spirit great world. Such events have occurred before. Then you don't need to worry. The current disputes are also an evolution of the human world's progress." Facing an Xin, Guan was willing to reveal some heavenly secrets. The scheming of the immortal gods has always existed, but it's not the current conflict. An Xin nodded slightly, then came to Guan's side, beginning to inquire about difficulties in cultivation. She, too, had stepped onto the primordial emperor road, though her daily cultivation still primarily focused on the immortal emperor's eye. The master and disciple chatted for a while before Guan finally departed. He walked through the woods, his gaze fixed on the path of the great Dao. Someone was about to achieve the position of primordial Dao emperor. This will be the first primordial Dao emperor. And that person is Feng Xian. On the current path of the great Dao, over 3,000 beings have stepped onto the primordial emperor road. Once the first primordial Dao emperor is born, the fortune of the primordial Dao emperor will rise significantly, extending to the 3,000 great worlds. At that time, the primordial crystal will also be distributed across all heavens and myriad realms. The fortune of the primordial Dao emperor is still in a growing state. If someone were to kill Guan, this fortune would dissipate into thin air. Once a primordial Dao emperor is born, then, even if Guan were to fall, the fortune of the primordial Dao emperor would remain, just like the great Dao, eternal and unchanging. Because of this, Guan also eagerly anticipated Feng Xian's success. At this moment, Feng Xian was meditating in an independent void, where only he and the Blood Prison Great Saint existed. The Blood Prison Great Saint was far away, not daring to disturb him. Once this cycle of reincarnation reflection concludes, integrating all reincarnation insights, Feng Xian will truly become the primordial Dao emperor. As Guan's gaze fell upon Feng Xian opened his eyes in response, his eyes bursting forth with a frightening brilliance, as if illuminating the entire void. Seeing this, Guan's lips curled up, and he withdrew his gaze. He knew Feng Xian had succeeded, and no one would come to stop him. As the sun set in the west, on the grass by the big river, a man in black with a straw hat was advancing. He carried a broadsword on his back, 3 treasure swords at his waist, and a wine gourd in his hand, drinking as he moved. Behind the man in black was a young boy in commoner clothes, with 2 ropes thicker than his arms tied around him, connected to a broken log with a diameter of over a foot. This scene was quite spectacular because the disparity between the young boy's physique and the log was immense, making one marvel at the powerful strength contained within his small frame. Search * the novel Fire. Net * website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The young boy was already drenched in sweat and panting heavily. He looked up at the man in black ahead and gritted his teeth, saying, "Master, I've been carrying this burden for 100 miles. Are we not stopping yet?" "This is just the beginning," Liya replied casually, tipping over the wine gourd in his hand and shaking it downwards, catching a single drop that fell before tossing it into his mouth. His action seemed quite carefree, making it hard to believe he was a free immortal. The tides of the human world rose and fell, with exceptional talents always taking turns to shine. Liya's renown wasn't particularly illustrious, but his growth rate had always been among the top in the world, with continuous opportunities. He, too, was now on the primordial emperor road. Hearing his master's words, the young boy couldn't help but ask, "Continuously refining my physique, is it really useful? When will you teach me the method of cultivating immortality?" "Master, I really want revenge. You can't just mess with me like this." Liya did not turn back, snorted, "You brat, I'm not some idle person who has the time to mess with you. Your physique is extraordinary. It needs to be awakened. I'm doing this for your own good." Hearing this, the young boy could only suppress his frustrated feelings. After a while, he couldn't help but ask again, "Master, where are we going?" "To the Sword Sect, to see how my junior brother's disciple is doing in their Tao practice." "The Sword Sect? Is Master Uncle also in the Sword Sect?" During the years following Liya, the young boy had heard of the Sword Sect's name, a supreme sect rumored to house immortals. Just the thought of possibly having his master come from the Sword Sect made him excited. Having lived together for many years, he only knew his master's name was Liya, but not his background, which he was always curious about. Unfortunately, Liya wouldn't divulge any details. "Your master uncle isn't there because the founding ancestor of the Sword Sect is your master uncle's disciple." Liya's response made the young boy's eyes widen, his face full of disbelief. He was truly shocked. The Sword Sect was founded countless years ago, and in the legends of the Immortal Cultivation realm headherd, only the Tao court was older than the Sword Sect. If Liya wasn't exaggerating, then how many years had Liya lived? "Your master uncle has many disciples. Of course, I also have many, but unfortunately, my disciples don't compare to his." Liya hummed softly, intentionally provoking the young boy. As expected, upon hearing this, the young boy quickly said, "Master, don't worry, I will surely not disappoint you. I will cultivate to surpass the Sword Sect's founder. All you do is brag." Liya said this, but couldn't help the upward curve of his lips. He truly saw endless hope in the young boy, recalling the past and how, at his current realm, to advance his cultivation level required accumulating long centuries, so he also wanted to take disciples to pass the time. He's had more than 10 disciples but felt none could compare to Gu An's disciples. He liked to compare his disciples with an Hao and Yang Jian. The young boy, to divert his focus, began to inquire about the name and whereabouts of that master uncle. Unfortunately, no matter how he asked, Liya gave ambiguous answers, leading to some bad guesses. Could it be that master and master uncle were not on good terms? Just then, the young boy noticed an old man fishing by the river ahead, which confused him. There was no town within 1,000 miles. Why would someone fish here? Could it be a sage in seclusion? He had heard many legends. Great fortune seekers often encountered reclusive sages, thereby gaining inheritances and opportunities. Liya also noticed the old man, appearing indifferent but was actually alert inside. Because he couldn't discern the other's cultivation level, he proceeded without a change in pace. As he walked past the old man's back, the old man spoke. "Liya, from the Taizong dynasty, son of the son of heaven of Taizong, sent to the supreme sect for cultivation in his youth." Liya stopped immediately upon hearing this. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 695. heavenly ascension stairs. Liya looked at the old man by the river and squinted, asking, "Who are you, sir, and how do you know me?" The boy in coarse clothing followed and stopped, looking at them nervously. This old man had an unfathomable aura and immediately revealed his master's origins. Clearly, he wasn't simple. The old man slowly stood up, turned to Liya, revealing a face full of wrinkles. His eyes were so hollow that it sent chills down one's spine. "If I said I am an immortal god, would you believe me?" The old man stared at Liya, speaking in an indifferent tone. Liya raised an eyebrow and said, "Anyone who reaches nirvana can call themselves an immortal. There are plenty of immortals in this world. Why wouldn't I believe it? Immortal gods." The boy in coarse clothing was stunned, quickly removing the rope from his body and watching the old man warily. He had experienced family destruction, so his vigilance was extremely high. "I am the Huang Feng, immortal monarch of the celestial court, ruling over the 3,000 great worlds. Everything in your eyes is not even as large as my palm to me." As the old man spoke, he raised his right hand, his gaze falling on his palm. Such arrogant words made Liya frown. He also grew cautious, ready to fight at any time. "Throughout hundreds of thousands of years, I've sent people to help you numerous times, teaching you Taoist techniques. Of course, your accomplishments today are also due to your own strong fuyuan and the help of other benefactors. But the immortal gods have always been watching you." Huang Feng, immortal monarch, raised his eyes to Liya, their eyes meeting. Liya inexplicably believed him. Liya asked, "So? What do you want? Do you need me to repay you?" Huang Feng, immortal monarch, asked, "If I offer you the opportunity to become an immortal class, would you take it? What are the conditions?" "After joining the immortal class, Sangtian will only grant you duties and divine power. I don't need you to do anything for me." The words of Huang Feng, immortal monarch, made Liya frown even more. Liya stared intently at Huang Feng, immortal monarch, as if trying to see through him. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, continued, "To be honest, choosing you wasn't because of your own opportunity, but because of the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. I think the supporting Dao Sword Venerable has a misunderstanding about the celestial court and the immortal gods. If there's no substantive conflict, I see no need to be enemies. If you become an immortal god and understand the celestial court, you would build a bridge between the celestial court and the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. In the future, a terrifying cataclysm will descend, sweeping across the 3,000 great worlds. We can face it together." Upon hearing him mention Guan, Liya's frown instead eased. Saying it like this, it seems true. Although he thinks highly of himself, he wouldn't truly think he could attract the attention of the immortal gods. Even though he doesn't know where the celestial court is, just hearing about it, he imagines it as an unimaginably powerful force. Liya asked, "If that's the case, why don't you just approach him directly? Can't you find him?" Huang Feng, immortal monarch, turned his head towards the horizon, speaking leisurely, "There is already an immortal god by his side, and sooner or later he will be told. As for finding you, it's just to deepen my sincerity." Liya thought for a moment and said, "Then can I talk to him first before coming to you?" Huang Feng, immortal monarch, looked at him, smiled, and softly said, "Of course, that's not a problem. Let me first take you to see the celestial court." As he finished speaking, he suddenly swung his sleeve, sweeping away Liya and the boy in coarse clothing, the three disappearing together from the grass. Far away on the Taizong continent, Guan did not stop what he was doing, continuing to pick medicinal herbs. Profound, mysterious Shinran followed beside him. After 500,000 years, he had completely mastered the demon god body, his cultivation reaching the Zizai immortal realm, with an even more terrifying physical strength. Guan believed that even Taoist Zhang Zizai immortal was no match for him. Such progress is not exaggerated. After all, the demon god body is a great opportunity from the celestial court. Now when facing him, Guan no longer hides behind a tiny masked figure but confronts with his true form. Profound, mysterious Shinran followed beside Guan, like a Taoist child, inquiring about his cultivation doubts. Guan listened patiently, answering every question. After Guan finished picking the ripe medicinal herbs, profound, mysterious Shinran began sowing seeds. Guwen did not leave immediately but waited in the courtyard, his gaze on the row of stone statues in front of the courtyard wall, all of which were sword-venerate divine statues crafted by profound mysterious Shenren. When profound mysterious Shenren returned to the courtyard, Guwen spoke, "Why make these stone statues? I don't need faith, nor do I need people to always remember me." This was the truth. His cultivation to date was not reliant on the faith of the masses or worldly merits. They should remember. You don't need faith, but the world must not forget you. This is my selfish thought because I know this world isn't so important to you. If no one remembers you, there's no need for you to remain here. Profound mysterious Shinran spoke earnestly. The higher his cultivation level, the more he admired Guwen. Even with a Tao heart like his, he would yearn for the universe beyond, for other great thousand worlds, but Guwen could remain reclusive here and save the world multiple times. After hearing this, Guwen did not respond directly but smiled. "Your kin is about to ascend to immortality." "Kin? Do you mean Liya?" Profound mysterious Shinran asked with a frown. He already knew the relationship between Guwen and Liya. Back then he marveled at Liya's luck. Although they share the surname Li, he and Liya were like strangers. In his view, without Guwen's help, neither he nor Liya could become immortals. There are immortal gods wooing him, trying to persuade him to become an immortal, supposedly to draw me in. Guwen spoke with a smile, lifting his eyes to the celestial vault, his gaze seemingly already locking onto Liya. Profound mysterious Shinran heard the implication in Guwen's words and asked, "Since it's a scheme, will you intervene?" Guwen calmly replied, "Let Liya see the celestial court first. He needs to make his own choice. Even if the other party's target is me, for him, it's a great opportunity rarely encountered in life." These words made profound mysterious Shinran deeply respectful. Compared to Guwen's broad-mindedness, the schemes of the heavenly court immortals were insignificant. The lord of the celestial court is lacking. It would be better to let the senior take charge. Profound mysterious Shinran looked at Guwen, thinking to himself. Above the sea of clouds, Huang Feng immortal monarch, Liya, and the boy in coarse clothing appeared out of thin air. The boy in coarse clothing collapsed directly onto the clouds. He was about to speak, but was captivated by the sight above. Following his gaze, the celestial vault was azure, and at the top of the celestial vault, one could see the cosmic starry sky, vast and boundless, giving a fantastical sense of being in a dream. So the Nelfire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The celestial vault merged seamlessly with the universe. Liya was also drawn by the magnificent scene above, feeling that the concentration of spiritual energy here far surpassed that of the celestial spirit great world. Cultivating here for a day might equal several months in the celestial spirit great world. Is this the celestial court? Huang Feng immortal monarch spoke. This is not the celestial court, but it leads to the celestial court. The celestial court is above all realms, and cannot be reached merely by traversing the universe. One must ascend the heavenly ascension stairs. In the celestial court, not all immortal gods can ascend the heavenly ascension stairs. The celestial spirit god who guards the celestial spirit great world has never stepped on the heavenly ascension stairs in his life. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 696, Heavenly Might. Heavenly Ascension Stairs. Liya looked up, searching for the heavenly ascension stairs that Huang Feng immortal monarch mentioned, but no matter which direction he looked, he couldn't find them. The cloth-clad youth was also searching for the heavenly ascension stairs. The celestial vault was boundless, the universe magnificent, its end unseen, and the sea of clouds beneath their feet equally vast, making them feel as insignificant as dust. After looking around, Liya couldn't help but ask, "Where are the heavenly ascension stairs? You can't have brought me here just to look at the sky, right?" Huang Feng immortal monarch smiled and said, "Usually, you can't glimpse the immortal signs of the celestial court, but today I will make an exception. You are about to witness something even a celestial god cannot comprehend." These words made Li Ya and the cloth-clad youth even more expectant. Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, stepped forward, then lifted his robe, kneeling with one knee and raised both arms, chanting magic spells that Li Ya and his apprentice could not understand. Li Ya and the cloth-clad youth became even more anxious, looking up at the celestial vault, waiting for the heavenly ascension stairs to appear. CTH Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The sea of clouds ceased its surging, the celestial vault and the starry cosmos remained silent yet oppressive. As time passed, Li Ya and the cloth-clad youth gradually felt an overwhelming pressure, reminiscent of the celestial tribulation experience during crossing the tribulation. Li Ya felt it most acutely, as none of the pressures he had faced during any celestial tribulation ever compared to the current heavenly pressure. Suddenly, a burst of golden light descended, illuminating Li Ya and the others, eyes wide open, mouths slightly agape. A streak of golden light quickly descended from the depths of the universe, rapidly enlarging, seemingly set to occupy the entire cosmos. Before Li Ya and the youth could ponder further, the golden light had already descended, turning into an incomparably majestic golden mountain, stretching countless miles long, its height unfathomable. The cloth-clad youth gazed upwards, pupils full of golden light. Even Li Ya was shocked, looking up in awe and spontaneously guessing how high this golden mountain might be. It seemed 1,000,000 zhang high. Placed in the celestial spirit great world, it would probably be visible even from outer heaven. Yet he had never seen such an enormous mountain, making him forget his worries for a moment, staring blankly at the golden mountain ahead. The golden mountain shone brightly, devoid of any vegetation, appearing like a heavenly wall across their path, and once it fell, its imposing aura grew, showing no end in sight on either side. Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, slowly stood up, looking at the 1,000,000 zhang high golden mountain before him, eyes full of reverence. How could the heavenly ascension stairs? Li Ya took a deep breath, looked towards Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, opening his mouth to ask, yet before he could finish, another vast heavenly pressure descended, startling him to look up again. What he saw next was a scene he would never forget. One after another, golden mountains 1,000,000 zhang high fell from the top of the universe, stacking upon each other, shaking the heavens. Boom, 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 the entire world seemed to tremor, the sea of clouds roiling like molten waves. The cloth-clad youth gazed in shock at the celestial vault, body trembling incessantly, and Li Ya, though slightly better, was not much different. Golden mountains layered upon one another, rising continuously, forming a golden celestial staircase leading into the depths of the universe, each step 1,000,000 zhang high, exuding an insurmountable oppression, sacred and solemn. After a while, the disturbances in this world finally subsided. Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, waved his sleeves, taking Li Ya and the cloth-clad youth to the distance, looking at the heavenly ascension stairs from millions of miles away. Even from such a distance, the heavenly ascension stairs still overwhelmed the eyes of Li Ya and his apprentice. From this vantage point, the heavenly ascension stairs seemed to have already broken out of the boundaries of this world, leading deep into the universe, unseen at the end, and Li Ya and the youth felt that just walking along these stairs would take them to the peak of the great Tao. The feeling was wondrous, yet the two inexplicably nurtured such a thought. The heavenly ascension stairs are not just tall, each step harbors immense heavenly pressure. To set foot on the first step, one must first reach the golden immortal Tao fruit realm, a realm far beyond your current reach. Only those in the immortal class have the opportunity to attain it. Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, remarked with a tone of reflection. Although this was not his first sight of the heavenly ascension stairs, he could not help but marvel every time he saw them. The existence of the heavenly ascension stairs symbolized the insurmountable gap between the mortal and the immortal. Even someone like Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, felt a sense of awe toward the heavenly Tao. Li Ya did not respond, still caught in the throes of shock. He could feel that every step of the heavenly ascension stairs encompassed the strongest true meaning of the great Tao, so much so that he felt an impulse to kneel and worship. The trembling cloth-clad youth couldn't withstand the heavenly pressure and knelt in the sea of clouds, eyes vacant. Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, turned, looking at Li Ya, and with a smile, asked, "Now how will you choose? Will you still seek him out? Even if I can't form a friendship between you and him, becoming an immortal god is your greatest opportunity. Only by becoming an immortal god can you truly achieve immortality. I cannot harm you, for the celestial rules exist." Upon hearing this, Li Ya instinctively wanted to agree, yet as he spoke, he forcibly suppressed the urge within. After seeing the heavenly ascension stairs, he believed in the existence of the celestial court, influenced by the heavenly Tao on his soul, making him unable to doubt it. Yet when it came to Guan, he had to tread carefully. Huang Feng Immortal Monarch's words only made him feel that the Immortal Monarch was fearful of his contact with Gu, and was it truly to form an alliance through him? Li Ya took a deep breath and said, "I still wish to find him first. I will strive to convey your sincerity." He feared that Huang Feng Immortal Monarch would turn hostile, so he left room in his words. Huang Feng Immortal Monarch heard this, still maintaining a smile, yet his smile grew more and more eerie. Li Ya realized something was amiss, immediately grabbing the cloth-clad youth, distancing them from Huang Feng Immortal Monarch. The next second, Li Ya's expression changed drastically, discovering his mana had solidified, looking at Huang Feng Immortal Monarch in terror. The cloth-clad youth also awoke from his shock, glancing at Huang Feng Immortal Monarch, frightened by the monarch's sinister smile. Huang Feng Immortal Monarch stared intently at Li Ya, sighing, "Mortal, I have treated you with such sincerity, yet why do you still mistrust me?" Though fear gripped Li Ya's heart, his words remained unyielding. He directly questioned, "What do you intend to do with Guan? If you are truly an immortal god, why resort to such tricks?" Huang Feng Immortal Monarch laughed coldly, "I did not deceive you. I do wish to win him over, to make him an immortal god. But if he refuses, then the celestial court can only eliminate him. No one can refuse the celestial court's invitation. If you do not understand, you must understand today." Boom. His aura erupted suddenly, his clothes burnt away by flames, flesh as if turning to ashes and scattering, his form heightened, quickly revealing his true form. Golden red light ribbons surrounded him, his appearance still aged, yet more solemn than before, two divine beast phantoms rising behind his head, intertwining. The yellow robe fluttered, celestial aura exuded, the revealed form of Huang Feng Immortal Monarch emanated an unparalleled aura of dominance. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 697. Facing the true form of Huang Feng Immortal Monarch, Li Ya and the young man in simple clothes felt immense pressure, especially the young man, who felt like he might explode and die at any moment. The oppressive aura around them squeezed his body, causing his chi blood to become chaotic. Li Ya was terrified. He could feel Huang Feng Immortal Monarch's killing intent. If he refused again, Huang Feng Immortal Monarch would definitely kill him. Moreover, he would have no power to resist. At this moment, memories of the past unexpectedly surfaced in Li Ya's mind. Those were memories of the profound valley, when he, Guan and Meng Lang followed senior brother Zhang Chuanxiu to sow seeds. Back then, Meng Lang liked to order Guan around, while he always watched from the side. These memories had long become blurry, but for some reason, they became clear once again at this moment. SAR the Novel Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Huang Feng Immortal Monarch quietly watched him, waiting for his decision. The grand and boundless heavenly ascension stairs still stood behind Huang Feng Immortal Monarch, like the end of the world, an insurmountable chasm. The young man in simple clothes couldn't turn his head to look at his master, but he could feel his master's agony. The immortal gods spoke eloquently, but with such aggression, it was obviously not with good intentions. However, if he died here, he would miss his chance for revenge. The young man's heart was filled with fear and unease. Li Ya remained silent for a long while. Only when Huang Feng Immortal Monarch shifted his gaze to the young man did he finally speak. "I refuse to comply with you, even if you kill my disciple. Doing this will only make me angrier. If I survive, I will regard you as my greatest enemy, and even with the Celestial Court's protection, I will use all means and all my strength to take revenge on you. Until death. His tone wasn't fierce, even sounded strained, but his gaze was icy cold. Huang Feng Immortal Monarch's brow slightly furrowed, and the killing intent in his eyes grew stronger. A mere mortal dared to threaten him like this. Boom! The young man in simple clothes suddenly exploded, flesh and blood flying everywhere, splattering onto Li Ye, covering half of his body with a bloody hue. His face was still marked with the remnants of the flesh and blood, yet his expression did not change. He continued to stare tightly at Huang Feng Immortal Monarch, as if his disciple's death didn't affect him. Huang Feng Immortal Monarch sneered with disdain, saying, "Do you think you still have a chance? Refuse me, and not only will you die, but everyone related to you will also suffer misfortune, living a life worse than death in the human purgatory, until death." He raised his right hand, reaching towards Li Ye. Li Ye's face remained stoic, only the chill in his eyes intensified. Sniff. A hand suddenly rested on Huang Feng Immortal Monarch's left shoulder, directly facing him. Li Ye's expression finally changed, and the corners of his mouth slightly lifted. Huang Feng Immortal Monarch's face slightly altered. He turned his head slightly, using the corner of his eye to glance at the person behind him. Standing behind him was none other than Guan. Even though they were close, he couldn't see Guan's true face. Supporting Dao's sword Venerable, you finally decided to show yourself. Huang Feng Immortal Monarch spoke, his tone tinged with mockery. Your entry into the celestial spirit great world must have been an accident. If you truly wished to support that son of heaven, you wouldn't have sent him out. Join the celestial court. I will personally petition Sungyin. You have no room for refusal. Having captured Tai Immortal Monarch and the 72 immortals of Jindong, you've already committed a heavenly crime. If you do not ascend to immortal god status before Sungyin becomes aware, you will face the wrath of the celestial court. By then, you will be facing an existence far more terrifying than I. Li Ye fixed his gaze on Huang Feng Immortal Monarch, waiting now for Guan's choice. Can you really represent the celestial court? Guan's voice rang out, and Huang Feng Immortal Monarch's body froze. Just as he was about to respond, a terrifying force suddenly obliterated his body, causing him to follow the same fate as the young man in simple clothes, except he did not explode into a blood flower but instead turned into flying ash and dispersed. Seeing Huang Feng Immortal Monarch unable to resist in Guan's hands, Li Ye was not surprised, but only his gaze turned complex. Junior brother Gu, why couldn't you appear sooner? Li Ye thought bitterly. He felt he had no right to blame Guan because the young man's death was his responsibility. Even having lived for hundreds of thousands of years, and after having experienced the tragic death of disciples, his heart still felt filled with guilt and unwillingness. Just then he noticed a change in Guan's eyes, a dark red cold light flickering, rendering him momentarily dazed. Master? A familiar voice reached Li Ye's ears as if it came from a great distance, gradually growing louder. He suddenly opened his eyes wide, awakening like from a dream, turning his head to see his disciple, the young man in simple clothes, standing right beside him. Xianxia looked at the young man, speaking in shock. He was utterly bewildered, unable to comprehend the situation. The young man named Li Xianyu stood before Li Ye, excitedly saying, "Master, I'm not dead. I am alive. I thought I was going to die just now. Was I caught in an illusion technique?" Upon hearing this, Li Ye looked down at his robe, noticing that the bloodstains were rapidly disappearing. The previous scene was definitely not an illusion technique. Li Ye turned his head towards Guan in the distance. Guan was watching him, yet in his eyes, Guan's figure was so blurred that he couldn't discern Guan's current expression. "Junior brother Gu, what just happened?" Li Ye couldn't help but ask. Upon pronouncing, "Junior brother Gu," Li Xianya's eyes widened, immediately turning towards Guan. Everything that just occurred was real, not an illusion. I merely turned his death from reality into illusion. He is still alive. Guan replied, leaving Li Ye and Li Xianyu even more astonished. They couldn't possibly understand Guan's meaning, filling them with awe towards him. Such unimaginable techniques? What level of cultivation must it be to achieve such? Li Xianyu asked nervously. Then, was that immortal god truly dead just now? Hearing this, Leah also grew tense, awaiting Gu'an's answer. Gu'an, facing away from the heavenly ascension stairs, replied, "Immortal gods are immortal. Just now, he was only a projection." In reality, his summoning of the heavenly ascension stairs wasn't to showcase heavenly might to you but to summon a path for stronger existence to the human world. Stronger existence? Li Ya and Li Xianyu shivered involuntarily, instinctively looking towards the heavenly ascension stairs. At the top of the heavenly ascension stairs, leading to the end of the universe, a ball of white light had unknowingly appeared, slowly expanding. Their hearts raced, feeling a chilling sensation as if being watched by an unknown presence. Supporting Dao Sword Venerable, since you know yet dare to come, who are you truly? Whom do you serve and what do you seek? Huang Feng Immortal Monarch's voice echoed, cold and foreboding, with killing intent engulfing the limitless cloud sea. Gu'an slowly turned around, facing the heavenly ascension stairs. At the top of the heavenly ascension stairs, within the dazzling white light, a figure descended. The million zhang high stairs were like ordinary stone steps from the mortal world beneath his feet. He bathed in the strong light of the heavenly Tao, making it impossible to see his true form, yet merely his silhouette brought immense pressure to Li Ya and the others. Every step he took echoed with the terrifying momentum of a collapsing sky. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 698, Golden Crow Divine Sovereign. The heavenly Daos' brilliant light grew larger and larger, resembling the arrival of a bright sun. The mysterious figure descending from the peak of the heavenly ascension stairs moved neither fast nor slow, but his footsteps grew louder and louder, resounding like the trembling of the heavens and the earth. Li Ya and Li Xianyu raised their heads, their expressions dazed as they gazed at the figure on the heavenly ascension stairs. The true form of Huang Feng Immortal Monarch had already filled them with great despair, but compared to this figure, Huang Feng Immortal Monarch seemed insignificant. An overwhelming aura enveloped the entire world, causing the sea of clouds to come to a standstill. Boom, 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 the rumbling grew more intense. The mysterious figure's footsteps seemed to tread on the hearts of Li Ya and Li Xianyu, making their souls tremble in fear. Li Ya forced himself to hold his fears in check and looked towards Gu'an's back. Gu'an stood in front, facing the heavenly ascension stairs. His vague figure exuded an unshakable aura of steadiness, giving Li Ya some relief. Li Ya's emotions eased slightly, and he chose to trust in Gu'an. Gu'an dared to come. He must have confidence. As time passed, the figure on the heavenly ascension stairs grew larger and larger, so large that the celestial vault seemed cramped in comparison. At this moment, another figure appeared on the first step of the heavenly ascension stairs. It was none other than Huang Feng Immortal Monarch. His figure, like that of a mortal, did not appear majestic. Standing on the first step of the heavenly ascension stairs, he looked insignificant, yet his aura was hard for Li Ya to ignore. As for Li Xianyu, his cultivation level was too low to even see Huang Feng Immortal Monarch's form. He could only stare blankly at the arrival of the mysterious giant immortal. Supporting Dao Sword Venerable, the existence behind me is the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign, ranked among the supreme immortals of the Celestial Court, in charge of the celestial law, and able to represent heaven's will. Do you truly intend to defy the will of heaven? Huang Feng Immortal Monarch's voice resounded, his tone solemn. Gu'an gazed at the figure of the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign. With the celestial destiny of the Celestial Court upon him, Gu'an couldn't perform lifespan detection on him but could sense his cultivation level. Late stage of Miao Jin Daoyuo Immortal Realm. The celestial destiny upon him was extremely thick, far surpassing that of Huang Feng Immortal Monarch. Even if faced with the early stage of Dao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal Realm, it should still be difficult to extinguish him in a short time. Of course, he was by no means a match for a Dao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal either. Gu'an did not fear too much, nor was he afraid of offending the Celestial Court because of this. Huang Feng Immortal Monarch acted too cautiously, clearly fearing that the matter would be exposed. The celestial court was so powerful that if Guwen had really offended them, they could easily suppress him instead of constantly probing him. Guwen surmised it had to do with Tian Hao. Tian Hao was the son of heaven reincarnated. Huang Feng Immortal Monarch, Tai Immortal Monarch, and others had come for him. From their perspective, Guwen might be the protector of the Son of Heaven, possibly with other powerful immortal gods backing him. It was precisely because of this that Huang Feng Immortal Monarch continually asked if Guwen wanted to join the celestial court. If he truly wanted to recruit Guwen, why would he seek out Li Ya? So far, Huang Feng Immortal Monarch had not revealed how to make Guwen and Li Ya become immortal gods, only constantly demonstrating the power of the celestial court. The Golden Crow Divine Sovereign did not stop walking, but as his distance to the Sea of Clouds shortened, his form became clearer. He seemed to be clad in thick divine armor, with a divine bird perched on his shoulder. Golden Crow. This Golden Crow was also enveloped in the strong light of the heavenly Tao, without revealing its true form. Sir the Oval Fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Do you also dare to represent heaven's will? Guwen's voice rang out, breaking the oppressive aura of the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign and Huang Feng Immortal Monarch, allowing Li Ya and his student to breathe a sigh of relief and cease their nervous tension throughout their bodies. Huang Feng Immortal Monarch squinted, his eyes bursting with coldness. He stopped speaking, waiting for the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign to make a move. What is your relationship with the eternal life, Venerable? Do you know what consequences your actions will bring? An authoritative voice echoed, devoid of any emotion. Eternal life, Venerable? Could it be the existence backing Tian Hao? Guwen spoke. The person you are looking for is no longer in the celestial spirit great world. You have been bothering me incessantly, and it really troubles me. Humph, by aiding him, you become our enemy. Since you refuse to speak, then prepare to die and feel the true wrath of heaven. The voice of the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign resumed, domineering and starkly contrasting Huang Feng Immortal Monarch's demeanor. He stopped his steps, stood on the heavenly ascension stairs, and looked down at Guwen raising his right arm. The golden crow on his shoulder fiercely flapped its wings, diving downward. After leaving the strong light of the heavenly Tao, the golden crow revealed its true form, enveloped in true sun fire, with a shape resembling a crow, its wings spanning millions of miles, as if bringing a sea of flames raining down from the celestial vault, unstoppable. Li Ya and Li Xianxia's faces changed drastically at this scene. Guwen suddenly raised his hand, the Cyan Hong sword appearing out of thin air. Holding the sword, he slashed towards the sky. With one slash, the sword chi shot out like a bright moon, the true meaning of the 3,000 great Tao gathering upon the sword chi, causing numerous stars to appear behind it, as if a galaxy sword. Almost instantaneously, the sword chi collided with the golden crow. Boom! Dazzling light burst forth, the world lost its color, fierce winds crushed the sea of clouds, forcing Li Ya to channel all his mana to protect both himself and Li Xianyu. Even though Guwen intentionally enveloped them with Tao intent, the powerful gusts of the great Tao still made their hearts race. The Golden Crow Divine Race stood lofty above. A pair of cold and terrifying eyes appeared on that face whose features were indistinct. He raised his hand, a roaring fire wave surged behind him, rolling like dragons. Outrageous! The Golden Crow Divine Sovereign's tone revealed extreme anger, and with this explosive shout, the sea of clouds beneath Guwen and his companions dispersed directly. The terrifying true sun fire descended from the sky, dispelling the powerful light between heaven and earth. Li Ya looked up, witnessing an unbelievable sight, countless massive fire dragons coiling above the celestial vault. The Golden Crow Divine Sovereign stood among them, his golden armor blazing like the sun, his visage stern, his eyes continuously seeping with flame, without pupils. His red hair coiled beneath the divine crown, like an unrivaled divine king descending with overwhelming celestial might. Guwen could sense a certain special power contained within those fire dragons, transformed from the celestial Tao destiny. Could this be the celestial law that Huang Feng Immortal Monarch mentioned? Miaozhen Dao Yuo Immortal Realm Perfection, no wonder you dare to oppose us. The eternal life venerable truly is a master of fine maneuvers. The Golden Crow Divine Sovereign's voice arose, causing Huang Feng Immortal Monarch's face to change dramatically. He had guessed that Guwen might be a Miao Jin Daluo Immortal, but hadn't expected him to have reached the perfection realm. Little did he know, this was Gu An's disguise. For Guwen, suppressing his cultivation level to Miao Jin Daluo Immortal Realm Perfection was enough to defeat the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign. Today, he intended to crush the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign's courage completely, so he would dare not trouble him again. The wind stirred Guwen's black Dao robe. He stood holding his sword with one hand, facing the wind, his silhouette imparting an indelible impact on Li Ya and Li Xuanyu. Before Guwen, in the air, a huge sword shadow of silvery light appeared, larger than any single step of the heavenly ascension stairs, its tip pointing towards the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign and the countless fire dragons. A sword intent capable of shaking the clouds and disturbing the great Tao locked onto the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign. Standing on the heavenly ascension stairs, Huang Feng Immortal Monarch widened his eyes and exclaimed, "Such sword intent, how is it possible? What is your relationship with the one from the river of Sword Tao? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 699. Gu N's Realm. The sword intent of the 3,000 slaying Tao swords condensed into an image, hanging in the celestial vault, pointing at the heavenly constitutional Dharma aspect of the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign. Facing this sword intent, the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign felt an immense threat, immediately gathering celestial Tao destiny to continually elevate his aura. The celestial vault began to collapse, space twisted, revealing patches of strange light spots. Li Ya looked up at the magnificent scene in the sky, his face filled with excitement. This sword intent, yes. It was the sword Tao taught to him by Guwen, the Taoist technique he had cultivated the longest. Before this, Li Ya had hesitated, thinking he needed to seek more powerful divine skills as his achievements in Sword Tao couldn't keep up with his cultivation level advancement. But now, witnessing the might of the 3,000 slaying Tao swords, the confusion in his heart was dispelled. The path of Sword Tao could always be pursued. Guwen held the Cyan Hong sword, the tip pointed downward as he looked up at the celestial vault, the sword shadows of the 3,000 slaying Tao swords directed at the direction within his gaze. He deliberately waited for a moment, allowing the mana of the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign to reach its utmost limit. He heard the words of the Huang Feng Immortal Monarch, but he didn't care. Now, he wanted to slay both the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign and the Huang Feng Immortal Monarch. Even if they could rely on the Celestial Court's destiny to revive, today he must shatter the courage of these two immortal gods. Gu and his eyes grew cold, and the sword intent avatar, which had paused for a moment, suddenly erupted with a terrifying momentum capable of shattering everything. Boom! The silver light sword shadows moved like thunder, instantly scattering the sky full of fire dragons, revealing the magnificent scene of the cosmos. The Golden Crow Divine Sovereign stared wide-eyed, casting spells with both hands, unleashing his immense mana without reservation. Yet, in the face of Gu N's sword intent, even with the blessing of Celestial Tao destiny, he still felt his heart tremble with fear. How could Miao Jin Daluo Immortal be so powerful? The Golden Crow Divine Sovereign was himself a Miao Jin Daluo Immortal. Inside and outside the Celestial Court he had encountered Miao Jin Daluo Immortal Realm Perfection before, but no one had ever filled him with such fear as Guwen. His fear arose quickly, and his demise came just as swiftly. Li Ya and Li Xianyu only sensed the world brighten. In an instant, the celestial vault shattered suddenly, the universe following swallowed by darkness. They felt as though they had fallen into an abyss, the endless darkness assaulting their sight, causing their hearts to feel intense dread. This was an instinctive emotion. Even though they had the protection of Gu N's Tao intent, the impact on their vision still affected their minds. Fortunately, this fear was short-lived. When they regained their senses and looked closely, they could no longer see the figures of the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign and Huang Feng Immortal Monarch. They were in the dark universe, void and desolate, with only the three of them remaining along with the heavenly ascension stairs. The heavenly ascension stairs still stood, the dazzling golden light becoming the sole source of light in this universe. Guwen looked at the heavenly ascension stairs, feeling in his heart that the creations of the heavenly Tao were truly extraordinary, unable to disperse even the heavenly ascension stairs. He turned to walk toward Li Ye and Li Xianyu, just as the master and disciple were about to speak, when suddenly their vision blurred. The next moment, Li Ye and Li Xianyu felt their feet touch the ground, instinctively opening their eyes to find themselves back by the riverside they had previously passed. Li Ye looked around, already unable to see the figure of Guwen. Everything that had happened before felt like a dream. Li Xianyu also did not find the figure of Guwen, standing there dazed, recalling everything that had happened before, his expression bewildered. For a long time, Li Ye took a deep breath, looked up to the horizon and murmured to himself, "Miao Zhen Daluo Immortal, is that your realm? Unheard of, and I wonder how many realms away it is from the profound Yuan-free Immortal." Knowing Guwen's realm, Li Ye began to feel excited. At least he now had a target to pursue. Li Xianyu couldn't help but ask, "Master, was that person earlier the uncle master you mentioned before?" "Yes, it was him." Li Ya's expression returned to calm, as enigmatic as ever. "He's amazing. Is he the most powerful existence under the heavens?" "Not just under the heavens. If you look beyond heaven, you won't find many who are his match." "So powerful, how can he be your junior brother? Could it be you're hiding your cultivation?" Li Xianyu asked expectantly, his eyes shining brightly. Li Ye did not answer, merely gazing profoundly toward the horizon, stirring Li Xianya's imagination and making it difficult for his emotions to calm down for a long time. On the other side, Guwen did not return to the Taoist field of the beginningless, but stood on the cliff of a high mountain. In front of him, a sea of clouds churned, with peaks emerging from the clouds in the distance. It was as if he stood above the Zhangtian, with beautiful scenery. He was reflecting on the previous great battle. This battle had caused anxiety to arise in his heart. The celestial court's destiny was truly unsolvable, allowing immortal gods to resurrect endlessly. He must devise a method to dissolve the celestial court's destiny. The celestial court's destiny was essentially the celestial Tao destiny, only transformed through some creation, making the celestial court's destiny more complex. If he possessed a method to dissolve the celestial court's destiny, he could kill immortal gods at will. He thought it might be possible to start from the path of cause and effect and the path of chi fortune. Although he could not think of a solution for now, he could conduct lifespan projection and life evolution. He did not immediately set about doing this. Instead, he lifted his eyes to the celestial vault, his gaze hesitant. In the unseen, he sensed a sword intent calling to him from afar, that place being the river of Sword Tao. The sword intent used to slay the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign had alerted a powerful being hidden within the river of Sword Tao, who used sword intent to show goodwill and wished to meet him. Should he make a trip to the river of Sword Tao? Above the boundless sea of clouds, there was a massive vortex emitting golden light, resembling an entrance to an exotic world, magnificently vast. Beside the vortex, two figures appeared out of thin air above the clouds and mist, precisely the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign and the Huang Feng Immortal Monarch. At this moment, the form of the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign was no longer as huge as it had been before. Though still more stalwart than the Huang Feng Immortal Monarch, they now appeared roughly similar in size. The two immortal gods half kneeled on the mist, their backs rising and falling, gasping for breath. The Golden Crow Divine Sovereign, with his head lowered and eyes wide open, kept gasping, his eyes full of shock. Though he could revive, the sword intent earlier actually injured his Tao fruit, leaving him with lingering fear. So the novel Fire. Any *T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Even he was like this, not to mention the Huang Feng Immortal Monarch. Huang Feng Immortal Monarch trembled all over, supporting himself on the ground with both hands. He felt Guan's killing intent still locked onto him. After a while, the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign stood up, turning his head to look at Huang Feng Immortal Monarch, who was still kneeling on the ground. He spoke, Never go to the celestial spirit great world again. He had already returned to his usual state, solemn and indifferent. The Huang Feng immortal monarch did not lift his head, asking through gritted teeth, "What about the Tai immortal monarch and the 72 immortals of Jin Dong? What do you mean, what about them? Could it be you and the Tai immortal monarch have become close friends? The celestial court is in turmoil now. Supporting the Son of Heaven we have chosen is the top priority. The Son of Heaven protected by the supporting Dao Sword Venerable is too weak, unable to threaten the Son of Heaven we chose. Don't delay the important matters." The tone of the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign was irrefutably firm, causing the Huang Feng immortal monarch to fall silent. Seeing him so dejected, the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign said earnestly, "When the Son of Heaven exits seclusion, sweeping across the great Tao and all heavens, then we will ask him to destroy the celestial spirit great world. It will be no difficult task." The Huang Feng immortal monarch stood up, nodding with a complex expression. He no longer dared to go to the celestial spirit great world. He didn't want to face that sword intent again. Even if he could revive, each revival would deplete his cultivation, not to mention the feeling at the moment of death was real. Remove the heavenly ascension stairs and pretend it never happened. Do not spread it, understand? The Golden Crow Divine Sovereign stared at the Huang Feng immortal monarch, asking in a deep voice. The Huang Feng immortal monarch took a deep breath and said, "I will bury this matter in my heart forever. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 700, Infinite Void Sword Ancestor in the Dark Void, a river that emitted a silver-blue radiance stretched across the universe, twisting slightly, resembling an endlessly long silver dragon advancing slowly. This was the river of Sword Tao, formed by the Sword Tao nurtured by the heavens, on whose surface silver lines continuously emerged, symbolizing the birth of new Sword Tao. Guan appeared out of thin air on the river of Sword Tao. He had spied upon the river of Sword Tao many times, but this was his first time truly coming to it. As soon as he manifested, he stepped forward and walked toward the interior of the river of Sword Tao. The sword intent he displayed when confronting the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign and Huang Feng Immortal Monarch had disturbed the strongest presence within the river of Sword Tao. Guan sensed that the other party's cultivation level had reached the Dao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal Realm, although their minor realm was not as high as his. This time, Guan suppressed his cultivation level and came to meet this powerful presence with the Miaozhen Daoyuo Immortal Realm Perfection cultivation level. After entering the river of Sword Tao, Guan was surrounded by sword intent. As he glanced around, he could peer through the sword intent into different worlds, seeing the 3,000 great worlds, countless little worlds, and mysterious planes adrift within the great Tao. The bizarre and colorful scenes along the way could not tempt Guan to halt his steps. Flying within the river of Sword Tao, Guan felt as if he were traversing through time and space. After a while, his feet landed on the grass, which was part of a small island floating in the depths of the river of Sword Tao. On the island was a grove, and on the grassland outside the grove stood numerous steles engraved with the names of various Sword Tao, numbering over 100. After just sweeping a glance at them, Guan walked toward the grove. The grove was serene and not very large. He reached the garden inside the grove after less than 20 steps. In the garden grew many flowers and plants, and there was a small wooden building, not very exquisite, giving off an ancient feel. In front of the building was a stone table at which sat an old man in a gray robe brewing tea. The fragrance of tea filled the air, and Guan could feel a certain sword intent within the tea aroma. "Please have a seat, fellow Taoist." The old man in a gray robe looked at Guan and spoke with a smile. "Infinite Void Sword Ancestor, Dao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal Realm Early Stage 0/0/0, no lifespan?" No wonder he could only stay in the river of Sword Tao. It seemed his physical body and divine soul had already merged with the river of Sword Tao, coexisting with it. Guan silently contemplated as he followed and sat opposite the Infinite Void Sword Ancestor. The Infinite Void Sword Ancestor scrutinized Guan, while Guan likewise sized him up. After a while, The infinite void sword ancestor took the initiative to speak. You must be the master of the Sacred Heart Sword Dao. Earlier, I was wondering how this sword Dao could grow so rapidly with such a great cause and effect propelling it in the future. It turns out it was you, fellow Daoist. The Sacred Heart Sword Dao indeed has good fortune, and it will surely assist you in reaching higher realms. He noticed that Guwen was at the Miaozhen Daluo Immortal realm perfection, not as high as his own, but he believed Guwen would reach the same realm as him in the future, or even surpass him. He himself had achieved today's Dao practice by sacrificing freedom, whereas Guwen had lost nothing. Guwen nodded, curious as he asked, "Why are you in this river of sword Dao, fellow Daoist?" With the ability of a Dao Extreme Daluo Immortal, plus the connection with the river of sword Dao, seeing through the origins of the Sacred Heart Sword Dao did not seem difficult to Guwen. The infinite void sword ancestor stroked his beard and smiled. To be honest, I was once a disciple of the Immortal Cave Heaven. Back then, while I was still in the heaven-opening Daluo Immortal realm, I offended a supreme immortal of the Celestial Court. To avoid implicating the Immortal Cave Heaven, I came to the river of Sword Dao to self-destruct. By a stroke of luck, I didn't die but was reborn. Sadly, I can no longer leave the river of Sword Dao and can only study the Sword Dao here, spying on the evolution of the great Dao in the worlds. Actually, the reason I asked you to come is not just because of your sword intent but also because your clash with the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign reminded me of my past. Dare I ask what grievances you have with the Celestial Court? Guwen did not hide anything and replied, "I secluded myself in a great thousand world, wanting to stay away from trouble. By chance, I took on a disciple, little knowing he was the reincarnation of the Son of Heaven, attracting the heavenly court immortals. Even though I sent him to the misty immortal court, these immortals still won't let me go, and I'm at a loss." At the end, he gave a bitter smile. The infinite void sword ancestor listened and shook his head, saying, "The heavenly court immortals do indeed act overbearingly. Back then, I didn't intentionally offend that supreme immortal either, yet it still brought about disastrous consequences." Guwen knew of the existence of the Immortal Cave Heaven. The name had appeared before when he used Lifespan Breakthrough, but he wasn't sure of the foundation of the Immortal Cave Heaven. The infinite void sword ancestor began recounting his past. Those grievances were not surprising. He had merely stepped up to save a group of cultivators being harmed by a demon, but it turned out that the demon was backed by a supreme immortal. Since then, he had been beset by endless pursuits. As the two conversed, Guwen began gathering information about the Celestial Court, and the infinite void sword ancestor did not hold back. The celestial positions in the Celestial Court, from low to high, are classified as Celestial God, Star Monarch, Main Deity, Immortal Monarch, Supreme Immortal, Celestial Dao Venerable, and the Supreme Celestial Emperor. The celestial positions in the Celestial Court are not entirely determined by cultivation level. With sufficient merit, one could also be promoted, though the gap between each celestial position wasn't excessively wide. Some Supreme Immortals are Miaozhen Daluo Immortals, while others have surpassed the Miaozhen Daluo Immortal realm. Additionally, the duties for each celestial position vary, as do the celestial Dao destinies they receive. Some immortals exist for combat and are extraordinarily powerful, while others who are less skilled in combat hold high ranks but may have cultivation levels lower than their subordinates. Besides these celestial positions in the Celestial Court, there are also some formidable presences that only partake in destiny, not holding specific celestial offices, and would only appear when the Celestial Court was in turmoil. Through the infinite void sword ancestor, although Guwen could not determine the exact realm of the immortals by their celestial positions, he could at least confirm one point. Within the Celestial Court, the most powerful was the Celestial Emperor. In Gu An's previous life in Wuxia, there were also many legends, including a Celestial Court, but within that Celestial Court, the Celestial Emperor was not the strongest. This was indeed a difference. Yet, they were both called Celestial Courts. Perhaps the mythology from Wuxia was related to the Celestial Court he was confronting. Could it be that the Celestial Emperor in myths was not the strongest due to the internal struggles of the Celestial Court? Guwen silently speculated. The infinite void sword ancestor continued, I observed that the one who first provoked you was an immortal monarch. Therefore, the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign should indeed be the end of this cause and effect. As it involves the Son of Heaven, they certainly dare not call upon Tsungin. Although you could stand against the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign, it is best for you to think of more strategies. If you do not reject the Celestial Court, joining it is actually a good plan, or letting your disciple enter the Celestial Court to share the burden for you. Guan developed a favorable impression of the Infinite Void Sword ancestor. His suggestion was also one Guan had considered. Despite having a vendetta with the Celestial Court, he was still being advised in this manner. The Infinite Void Sword ancestor was indeed sincere with him. I will consider it, though I am quite curious about the fight for the Son of Heaven. Could you tell me about it, fellow Taoist? Guan agreed and then inquired further. See Teach Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible.